You ready?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't know if he is, but I am.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Rockport Select Board to order. Originally scheduled for Monday, February 8th. It is actually Tuesday, February 9th, 7 PM. The first item that I'd like to, if you have a cell phone, I would appreciate you muting it. If you have to take a call, if you would step all the way outside, not just into the anteroom here, because it becomes very noisy then. The first item that we have is the approval of the minutes from Thursday, November 5th. And that was placed, it was emailed out to us earlier today, and it is now in front of us tonight. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second? Second. Thank you. Do we have any changes?
Ooh,
I had, oh, go ahead,
Go ahead.
sorry.
All right.
Does this incorporate the emailed changes? I just haven't had a chance to look through it. I emailed you just like I had two little minor things. I thought that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Email you stuff so we could. Oh, okay. Awesome. Nope, no problems.
Okay, Ken?
I had emailed asking if Rick's, his rather lengthy letter to us at that meeting could be appended to these minutes.
Yep, I sent it, okay. I sent it to you, right?
So I think that's.
It will be appended then.
that is-
Yeah, I sent it to you as an email. Oh,
Okay.
the other day.
Any others? All in favor of accepting with the appendix being added? All right. The next one is November 9th, and that I believe was included in our packet.
I don't have a November 9th.
No? Okay,
We don't have a November 9th.
we don't have a November 9th.
Can I move to table November 9th?
We'll accept that. Do we have a second to table?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? All right, we've tabled that.
Okay.
November 17th, I don't
I
remember
don't have one of
seeing
those either.
it. Okay,
Okay, so move to table?
moved and seconded, all in favor? Okay, we've tabled that. All right, let's get on to January 5th. That we do have. That was in the packet that was published. Do we have a motion to accept?
Move to accept?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We've had these in our hands for a
Yeah,
while.
I'm trying to,
Do we have any other changes? Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that's right. Anything?
Nope, looks good.
I'm looking down at the other end of the table now.
no, I'm just trying to make sure
Okay,
I need notes on the
all right.
electronic copies.
No further comment, discussion, all in favor? That is unanimous. We have two here then from January 11th. One was the executive session. I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the executive session.
So moved?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Does anyone have any issue with it? Hearing none, all in favor? Then there's the regular meeting from January 11th.
Move to accept?
It's moved and seconded.
Got this one, didn't we?
Actually,
Yeah, this was sent out some time ago.
Tracy was absent from this, so she probably can't make the motion.
Yeah, oh,
Okay, sorry.
that's true.
Move to accept? Second.
Moved and seconded, Parker and McKinley. Any, that's right, you were here early and then you.
Yeah, I was there for the
you took-
executive session.
Good, you took yes.
Will those notes, because they weren't changed, or the one that I had wasn't changed on here? I don't know.
Which is
It
that?
was just, it was Ari on the bottom of page 2, continued over to page 3. I'm the editor of Down East website, and I've worked for Maine Media and helped to bring fiber to Narrative, my new company. I don't know if that's how it sounded. He didn't bring fiber to Narrative. He was part of Maine Media.
Right.
They did the fiber thing. It sounds as though he brought fiber to his company, which wasn't what he was trying to get across.
Right. It was
And
to
then
main media.
The only other, this was a question, is it necessary to note in those that were present, Holly Edwards because she's media, do we need to note the media people here? It's just kind of a procedural thing. One way or the other, I don't care. I was just curious.
We usually do.
We usually do? Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So you have, at the very top of page 3, then
Yep.
you believe the wording is incorrect?
Well, I know it's true. He was with Maine Media at the time. That's
Yeah.
what he
No,
was-
no, but he didn't bring fiber to narrative, he brought fiber to main media.
Right.
He
Help bring
he
it.
was part of a large team.
Okay, so that is two, it should end as two main media.
And then narrative is his new is my new
Okay,
company.
oh,
And it is spelled in some
It's without the.
Yeah.
non-ordinary way.
There's tons of letters missing.
oh,
Yeah, there
and,
are.
And you had nothing to do with that.
does have a
That's
weird
really
spelling.
confusing.
okay. Do we have any other changes?
Not from this end.
Okay. We have a motion to accept as amended now. That's good with everyone? Accept as amended? All right, all in favor? And one abstention due to absence. You just placed before us from Monday, May 8th. February 8th. What did we do to that? Oh, this is something,
That's-
okay. I'm sorry.
What?
That's our
Meeting notes.
process.
Same thing.
Yeah, okay. Some announcements. The next regular select board meeting will be Monday, March 14th,
Oh,
7
no, it's
PM
this one.
here at the Opera House. There are a number of announcements that go on for several pages. We are coming to the budget season, and we also have the 125th anniversary going on, so I will let people read those. One thing that I believe was omitted from the published minutes, the Recreation Committee is meeting Monday, February 22nd, 8 a.m. at Studio A, in Studio A at the Midcoast Recreation Center. I would also remind everybody that there's the Blood Feud between Camden and Rockport for February 25th from noon to 5 p.m. We encourage everybody to go to the Rockport Masonic Center and donate your blood there. That's at 361 Main Street. If you can't get to that one, then go ahead and go over to the, what is it, the Congregational Church, I think, in Camden. They will be accepting it at exactly the same time.
Yeah, but we have better prizes, raffle
have-
prizes.
We have
than they
better
do.
raffle prizes and things like that, so go right ahead and do that.
Up with this one today.
Okay. Committee openings are also listed. Agenda changes. Do we have any agenda changes this evening? No? Public comment. Public comment should be directed at issues not under discussion in this evening's agenda. Comment from the public will be welcome prior to each agenda item. Further comment will be granted only by permission from the board. Public comment should be brief and to the point. Do we have anyone wishing to make comment this evening? We have a member of the press.
No, I'm in a central,
Yeah,
had a
she's
different
wearing a
hat on.
different hat.
Rockport 125th, and
Oh, good.
I will be very brief.
Excellent.
This paper's as good as yours.
Mm-hmm.
Will I get one?
No.
Okay, just as an addendum to the blood feud, people can sign up online too at the, and I'm sorry, I don't have the website, American Red Cross.
It's actually in there.
RedCrossBlood.org.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Oh, it's right here? All right, so, are we ready? I think we're ready, right? February 25th, 2 weeks. Congratulations, you all, on your spectacular performance the other day.
Oh, I can cross that off my list of stuff now.
Well, that's just my congratulations. What you have in your hand is what we have put together to send to every household in Rockport, probably going out in the mail tomorrow. We figured that is the best way to reach everybody And then we'll do the, you know, the traditional press and the Facebook and the website and so forth. But we want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. On the weekend, starting Thursday, February 25th, going through Friday, February 26th, and Saturday, February 27th. Just very, very briefly, celebrating Rockport at the Opera House, 5:30 to 7 on the evening, Thursday evening. And it's going to be, that'll be our official ceremony when Rockport and Camden, when the legislature approved in 1891 Rockport and Camden splitting. So we will have speakers. Our keynote address will be Granville Ames and Herbert Annis. And we will have various other speakers representing the state, representing the county, representing Rockport. We'll have music. We'll have a Midcoast Brass Quintet. And we will have cake courtesy of Three Dogs.
3 dogs,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then on Friday, February 26th, we'll have a fireside chat with as many Rockport elders as we can get, and we have a list here. You'll see, everybody will see who's on here so far, and we welcome anybody else who'd like to participate. We really would love that. Hopefully, it'll be hopefully both events will be videotaped. When I look at you, Jeff, but I don't want to lay it on you. So, but it is an historical opportunity. It really is. This town seems to celebrate a lot. Celebrated its 100th, its 75th. So it's a tradition to celebrate.
We'll be moving all of the new high-def equipment from this room upstairs to that room for 2 days and be
Nice.
streaming from there.
That's wonderful. And with the elders, it'll be a very comfortable seating. We'll get some armchairs up there, and we'll have refreshments, possibly, you know, dinner-type refreshments. And the esteemed Paul Gibbons will be hosting that event and keeping everybody reined in terms of their time and their memories. We'll keep it clean. And then on Saturday, February 27th, the whole kit and caboodle moves to the Camden Rockport Elementary School for Mr. Dyer, Scott Dyer's My Home by the Sea, and it's being reprised. This is every year, his third grade class stages My Home by the Sea, and if you haven't seen it, anybody, it's really wonderful, and he's been doing it for years at the Camden Opera House. So for this event, he very kindly pulled together the fourth grade, who did it last year, and he's added elements that reflect particularly Rockport's history. So it's going to be a great show over there. We're going to have ice carving with Tim Pierce from the Samoset, and children's games courtesy of Ben and Ben of the library, sledding, and if, you know, whatever if there's snow, or if there's not snow, we'll play something else. Then later on, as you are well aware, you and Camden Select Board will have a special joint meeting at the Arch, and you'll exchange some snowballs in one way or another. And then after that, the action will go over to the Masonic Hall for a bean supper, courtesy of the Masons. And then after that, Simonton Corner, Community Hall, Aaron and Zach are pulling together a dance to round out the whole weekend. So that's the official weekend. And then come summertime, it all explodes again. And we'll have a great week then, and we'll update you. The only important change I want to let you know is that because there is a wedding that had been scheduled for August 6th, we are moving our Goose River Bridge dinner, and that involves shutting off the Goose River Bridge and setting up tables for a grand community dinner. That will change to August 7th. And we're hoping to have music. Monica's working on that, hoping she can reschedule the band that she had scheduled for August 6th, and possibly fireworks. But it's a Sunday evening, so we will keep it moderate.
And I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
The name of the arch over on Union Street is what?
There's
Oh,
a
really?
typo.
Is there a
The
typo?
Rockport Camden Arch?
Excellent.
Thank you for pointing that out. Linda and I were wondering if we had any typos. We'll have to correct that before we send out the rest of them. So, yeah.
What's the year on this picture?
Well, you know, a lot of those
The one on Mirror Lake.
yeah. That comes from the Penobscot Marine Museum, and that comes from the, what was it, the Eastman? The Eastman collection? That's a story unto itself, but I think a lot of those photos, those slides came 1881? Or 1887? That's the sort of the time period.
That looks more recent than that.
Okay, then 1901,
Well, just from the coat the gentleman's wearing.
1907.
Well,
Sold.
it says
No.
16, so maybe it was 1916.
A lot of those slides, as you know, were in Union Hall for years and years, and they got water damaged. And Kevin Johnson up at Penobscot Marine Museum, 37,000 slides. He peeled apart, Jeff, you know better, the process, but had to put
Keep them wet until you're ready to dry them.
them wet and put pieces of paper in between, so I think it's that vintage. Okay? Thank you.
Lots of fun, thank you.
Hey, Jeff, my wife said there's no video
Yeah.
There is no
That's-
video on the
You
television.
missed that whole
Yeah.
conversation.
because you're moving it upstairs.
No.
There's no video on the television tonight, but it is live streaming. So pop the kids down in front of the computer.
Yeah, I totally missed that.
Mr. Gibbons?
Paul Gibbons, I'm an attorney in Camden. I represent Richard Nightingale, who owns Bay Ridge subdivision. I want to talk to you tonight about the Rockport road acceptance ordinance and how I feel it is a retroactive ordinance and it applies unfairly to my client. To understand that, you have to go back to the beginning. My client's subdivision was approved in 2004. And in subdivisions, without question, the most expensive part of any subdivision is this road. That's the most expensive part. And my client had 3 additions to his subdivision already. This was the 4th. And the rule at the time was that if you built your road to specifications for the town would offer it to the public to see if they accept it. That's what the rule at the time was. And so what's most important about this is that when you're a developer, before you sell any lots, you have to make a decision whether that road's going to be a public road or remain a private road. And once you sell the first lot, you make that decision and you have to live with it. So when my client made a decision that he wanted to make it public, just like his other roads, because he knew that when he built the road to town specs, the town would bring it before the voters and they'd either accept it or reject it. And he knew what that was going to cost. 3 years later, almost 4 years later, on November 6, 2007, you enacted an ordinance, road accepted ordinance, that had something different in it. And it said that before a developer could offer a road to you, 50% of the lots basically had to have a house on it. In 2007. Almost 4 years after he started. What you did, and because the way the ordinance worked, it applied when you asked the town to accept a road. The problem is, it shouldn't have applied to subdivisions that existed before that time. The reason for that is you're changing the rules in the middle of the game. It's like at halftime of a football game saying, I'm going to change the rules. And the rules are significant. It's significant cost to a developer to change that rule. If that rule was in existence in 2004, when my client was about to go at stage 4, he may, number one, have said, I don't want to take the risk. I don't want to build this section of the road. Right now, because it's a public road, he has to maintain that road until the public accepts it. He has to maintain that road under your ordinance until 50% of the lots have a house on it. Something he never bargained for or even conceived of. And the lots that he sold before 2007, the price is based upon the cost of the roads. And he can't recoup that cost now in the middle of the game. So it places an unfair burden on him. So the answer is all you have to do is to amend this ordinance, is to give this over to the Ordinance Review Committee. And all I have to say is, that this ordinance applies to subdivisions that are in existence after November 6, 2007, the day you adopted this ordinance. To do otherwise is unfair. If you start, it's legal to have retroactive ordinances, but they're not fair. And I ask you to do what you would want, how you would want to be treated. I mean, in a very real sense, you represent the conscience of your community. And to have a rule change like that out of the sky and say all of a sudden it's going to cost you a lot more for your road shouldn't happen. It should happen at the outset so that when someone applies for the subdivision, they know what the rules are and they can move forward. So I'm asking you tonight to move forward with this and to ask the Ordinance Review Committee to make this one simple change in your ordinance to simply state that your road accepted ordinance applies to subdivisions that were approved after November 6, 2007.
For clarification here, are you asking us to place this before the Ordinance Review Committee starting this week at their next meeting?
I would like that if you can do that. I would like that.
So in other words, to violate the process that we have in place and have had in place for as long as I've been on the select board.
Well, the question is, I'd like to have it go to the Ordinance Review Committee. Of course, I'd like to do it as fast as I can. I would say this. If you were to say tonight that your next meeting on March 4th, or it's going to be, you were going to announce it's going to be 15 minutes earlier, you wouldn't have to have a special meeting for that because it's a procedural issue. So I maintain that just giving this to the Ordinance Committee is a procedural issue. That's all it is, because eventually it's going to come back to you anyway. So that's my pitch. It's up to you to decide whether you want to break your rule and not do that and put this on the agenda for the next meeting, hopefully, because I asked to put it on this agenda and we couldn't do it. But it's certainly not going to be a big burden to the Ordinance Review Committee. I have a letter attached to my letter to you from Steve Smith, who's on the committee, who says it's going to be a very simple amendment, it won't take them very long, and he thinks that they could easily do it. So I think your choices are to do it tonight, I hope. If you don't, put it on the agenda for your next selectmen's meeting.
My second question is, was your argument about this being an unfair burden raised in 2007 before that vote?
My client came to me recently, he didn't understand those issues, and now he understands them. He didn't know that it was going to be applied retroactively. He didn't know that.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Does anyone else wish to make public comment? Yes.
I'm actually here for the same reason. I actually live on Cliffside. My name is Yadi Korab, so I'm one of the families who is involved in this. And I know that John Duke already sent you an email, and he mentioned the 4 families that live there. We are actually the 5th family. We don't live in Hawthorne, but Cliffside is only accessible from it. So we also have a kid who is 5-year-old, and she's going to kindergarten next year. So it is our concern. For us, it's like 3/4 of a mile to get to the current school bus stop. So it's obviously our interest too that the road becomes public and we don't have to worry about all the other issues. So I was asking you to consider it so at least the public can vote on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to make public comment this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to the manager's report.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before we move on, I know that it's our practice to listen to
Okay.
these things and then sit back and say, yeah, okay, thank you very much. In this particular case, it seems to me that we can, in 3 minutes of conversation, this board, 5 minutes of conversation, look at one of 3 things. So I'd like to bring this subject up under new business only for the purpose of saying, do we ignore it, do we give it to the ORC, or do we put it on the agenda for next meeting? So can I introduce this into new business at the appropriate
Well,
time?
Maybe I can answer your question right here. The normal process that we go through is if one of the members of this board brings an issue to me and I agree that it should go onto the agenda, it goes on. If I don't agree, but 2 members of the select board bring the issue to me and ask to have it put on, it goes on. Does that answer your question?
It does, except for the specificity of when, are people bringing that to you prior to the meeting and then you put it on the agenda?
Well,
Or I'm
as
saying
I
new
start
business.
developing the agenda.
Right. No, I'm just saying new business for this particular meeting.
Okay, well,
What's the process for petitioning for that?
actually, if it's not on the agenda, we don't discuss it and take action on it. But if you'd want it on the next agenda, we can have it there for discussion at that time.
All right, so for those in TV land, just to tie this up, I would propose that we take this matter and put it on the agenda for next meeting.
All right. I will so make a note.
Yeah, because I totally want to talk about this, but I'm just waiting for the appropriate time.
All right. I take it we have two people that are in favor of doing that from your comment? Okay.
Right, thank you.
Okay, let's go to the manager's report. This will come up on our agenda in March.
First, in spite of Linda stealing my thunder, congratulating you for your run. Congratulations for your run. You guys had a great time. I actually was at an MMA conference today, and there were several comments from people who had seen it on Penn Bay Pilot and seen the video, and commented about how much fun the board looked like they were having, and what a great idea to have the two towns compete in that kind of a recreational, fun way.
I'd like to have a banner made with that lovely logo that we have on the back of our shirts.
Maybe with the
And
year
I-
like you see in the high school gymnasiums.
So you can add the year.
2016, we'll just keep adding
And I
on
want
to
to put it
it.
on the side of the Oshkosh for
it.
the plow
Yeah.
parade. That's my
Yeah,
suggestion.
You guys did.
So we've got 2016 down now.
I was really proud that for two reasons. One, that you did so well. Secondly, that you didn't get hurt. I was sitting next to people from the Health Trust, from the Workers' Comp and all those people, and saying, yeah, it was a good thing that
We're
they didn't.
flinching.
You're right. We
I
didn't.
think I noted that, I think Tracy was in front of me on the sled or whatever. We
I
looked down
was.
and the back doors of the ambulance were open.
You could just slide right in.
So they're there waiting for us.
So there was a lot, and I heard a lot of positive comments on the Hill from people, how much fun that was for the two boards to be out there having a good time at that event. So I think it went very well. So,
On that, we really have to thank the 125th Anniversary Committee. I mean, the logo on the back of those, of our sweatshirts, you couldn't help but smile looking at the eyes of the seal.
right.
Oh,
A
and
lot of people commented.
we have to thank the man who really made it happen, which is Tom Cox, who lent us his sled that was just amazingly fast.
I think the wax had a lot to do
I
with
do,
it.
I do think the wax had a lot to
A
do
lot
with
of
it.
elbow grease
It was
went into that
it was a
wax.
stunningly fast
That sled
sled.
did not look, I was a little worried it was going to take off without you when it was sitting at the top.
That's
Whenever
true.
Owen
It was
touched with
going
his
real,
foot,
it was sitting there very nicely until
Till-
somebody reached
touched-
out and touched it with his finger and it just started.
But you understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't want it to freeze to the snow and cause ice crystals slowing us down for hyperspeed.
Yeah, it was a great event, so thank you very much. That was a great event.
Okay.
So we, as my report reflects, we've done really well on the grant department this month. There were several, albeit small, but important grants. We received a grant for AED units, automatic external defibrillators, from the Maine Cardiovascular Health Council. And these units are going into the library, the public works buildings, which currently do not have these AED units. The library has a lot of people, it's a public building, there's a lot of people that go in there. So having it there is a big thing for us. Public Works, where they're working around equipment that has electricity and that kind of stuff. There, while the public isn't there, those guys are in a situation where potentially they might need it. And now they'll be in all two of the police cruisers and the chief's Tahoe. Also, the rescue truck and the fire chief's truck and truck 25 will all have AED units. The fire department typically police are first on the scene. because they're already in cars and driving typically, so having them have an AED in their vehicle is really important. The chances of us using it are slim, but but the time you need it, you need it. And it does make a big difference that those first couple minutes are life-saving minutes.
Will there be education offered to all of the employees?
Training will come. I did ask, they're pretty,
I just took the training in Lincolnville
Yeah.
like a month or
talks
so
to you.
ago.
we were supposed to have it a couple of months ago, and the ambulance was running that for us, and there was something came up, so they couldn't, so we're trying to put that together again for another training. There was also a MMA grant for new desks for the planning and development office. That grant Stacy submitted, which she does every year. She also did the AED grant as well. The fire department also received a grant in the amount of $6,200 from State Farm Insurance for Fire Safety Prevention Week, and that will be promotional materials that will get used throughout the year. That was more money than Jason was expecting. He thought that he submitted for that amount of money because that was, I think, the max grant, and that's what he was awarded. What his plan is, I believe, is to buy a Sparky, the fire dog suit that he could use in the schools to do fire training and fire education for kids in school. Also, 47 safety harnesses were donated by the Portland Fire Department. We're keeping, I believe, 20 of them, and the others are going to get donated to Lincolnville. And these harnesses are the harnesses which you'll see in next year's budget. There's money for, I think they're called bailout bags. These harnesses will be retrofitted to the guys' turnout gear, so that when they put on their turnout gear, the harnesses are already in place, and they'll have a rescue bag, one of these, it's a fireproof bag with rope in it, so that in the event that they're on the second floor and they need to evacuate the building quickly, it's basically a climber's harness with an ascender on it or descender on it, so they can evacuate a building. These things are becoming more and more essential or also for rescue of another firefighter that's at a lower level and fallen through a floor into a basement, that you can lower the firefighter down, and instead of them having to go down the hose, which we all know how that played out the last time. So we've got that. So the next step is to get those bailout bags for the firefighters as well. As you know, and you guys have spent a considerable amount of, two of the members of the board have spent a considerable number of hours working with Midco Solid Waste. I have another meeting tomorrow, and much of this work deals around the perk closure, which is coming up in 2018, and a possible solution for that. The Ambulance Review Committee has met, and as far as that goes, things are going very, very well. The changes we made in their contract has helped improve things dramatically, and the hope is that they will be in their new space quite soon here. We did receive a payment in lieu of taxes from the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship, and we've sent a letter of thank you to them. As you know, that they were doing that. They stopped doing that for a couple of years, and now they're back making those payments in lieu of taxes, which is a nice thing for them to do for us. The Planning and Development, Community Development Office, we've hired Diane Hamilton, who is a new resident in Rockport. She and her husband moved here, I think, in October, and she's working in the Planning and Community Development Office and is fitting in very well. The building permits and code permits, all those permits have trickled to almost a stop. Jamie did say this past week he didn't have a single application or a single permit. Jamie noted here that the MCED is doing this residential solar thing, and there'll be a meeting in March that's open to the public to help residents apply for and receive credits for solar collection. Don't ask me a lot of questions about it because I don't know.
Just wondering time, date, place, or a place that I can find it.
Someplace.
I'll get
sometime
with
in
Jamie.
March.
I'll get with Jamie.
Can we do a piece of paper to your neighborhood soon.
Yeah. It's sometime in March. I'm not sure that the date has been nailed down, because they're doing these workshops in a bunch of different places around the county. And so they'll be doing it here, and I'm not sure that they've nailed down the date yet. Our fire department helped out at that Union Structure fire that was, that happened last month. We continue to sort of defy the odds with the fire service, where many fire departments are losing volunteer firefighters. Not only is our volunteer department growing, but we also have a high turnout rate for fires that take place even during the day, which that's a tough time, is to get people to respond during the daytime. Somehow, our guys are able to get out and get to fires, and we actually get 15 or 16 firefighters show up to a call during the day, which is pretty amazing. And I want to thank those guys. They don't get enough thanks, and I want to make sure that they realize that we appreciate that.
And gals, Sam
Gals,
Layton's
right.
on
I was
there.
just gonna say.
Sam
Yeah.
Layton's
We've
on there.
got at least one or two female firefighters.
They had
now.
2 that turned out for their cold water rescue.
Yeah.
Because the chief offered to lend me a dry suit so they could throw me in the drink.
Yeah.
And I declined.
Yeah. The chief has done very well in generating interest. Part of it is the training, good equipment. One of the things we'll be looking at is some changes in the pay structure a little bit in the next year's budget to help give some ability for them to move up in rank. And, none of them do it for the money, because, I say over and over again, I wouldn't roll out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning for the amount of money that we pay them. And they do it for the work and for the love of what they're doing and the public service part of it. And you can't pay for that. You don't pay people for that kind of work, and thank goodness they're there. Another thing is, there's been several calls. One of them was the result of a CO2 detector that went off and possibly saved the life of that family. So people out there, pay attention to your CO2 detectors.
CO, not CO2.
CO detectors, yeah.
They're different.
Carbon monoxide.
Right, CO detectors, because it possibly saved the life of this family, and it could save yours if you're paying attention and checking it. The Camden Rotary presented for our former Fire Chief Bruce Woodard with the Paul Harris Fellow Award for his community service, which has spanned more than 40 years. I wish we'd have an exact number, because I think he might be coming up to a milestone of 45 or more years.
I think he retired when he had 43 years.
Yeah.
That was a couple years ago.
It was unknown to me, because I wasn't here when he retired, that after his first year on the job was the year that the Samoset burned down. And so he got hired, and the first big fire he had was the Samoset fire. Yeah, it was a really big fire. So, thanks to Megan in the finance department, we discovered a problem in the Trio software, which affected our W-2s. But she was able to work through that problem with Trio and get our W-2s not only out on time, but out early. So thank you, Megan, for that.
Can you rewind back to the Ray Sisk?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed it.
Because it seemed to be a big deal when Jeff and I went to our training. Ray really wanted to make sure that we were NIMS compliant, so it's good to see that we're at least going down that
No,
route.
the fire chief has been working on that with Ray Sisk, and he's coming back with a list. He's gotten very involved with the emergency management stuff, and he's worked very hard on that. So, we are continuing to work towards that NIMS compliance. So revenues are down in some of our areas, especially in code enforcement, which you kind of expect at this time of the year. Public Works, well, when I wrote this, it wasn't that bad, but with all the good work, Public Works has been able to get a lot of roadside work done. Up until Friday, we were in pretty good shape with roadside work. Those guys don't just sit idle when there's no snow to plow. There have been a few small snow events, and over the weekend, we had Friday and again, last night, was the last night we had more snow? Yeah, last night. And sometimes those events, like last night, those guys were here all night because they have to keep going out and salting and until it stops and stops blowing around, they have to be available because they get the calls. The test borings have been completed on the library site and the Memorial Park site. That's what, when you see all those flags out there, that's what those flags are. They did I think there's like 19 different spots that they hit. The final report has not been completed yet. They're compiling it into a formal final report, but it will be completed in time for once the planning committee brings back a recommendation, and the architects will have that information available when they do their work. Also, with regards to the library and Public Works, the library has been shut down and winterized, so it's all basically shut off, and all of the water has been drained. You notice in the park there's a pile of dirt. There was a bunch of earthwork that was done just after it got really cold the last time. When we went to shut the water off, that water system was put in so long ago that big trees have grown over the top of the system, and the shut-off they couldn't get it to shut down. So they couldn't drain the system out of the library, so we had to dig it up, and they had to replace it. So many of those big trees in the park are right on top of the water main, so it shows you how long that water has been there. So the new truck has been put into action, as you can see. It was in the parade. The new truck was in the parade. The infrastructure bids are going out this week. That's all taking place. The agreement between Rockport and Camden for assessing has been completed, and he started working in both towns. It is a little odd not having Kerry in the office every day. We'll get used to it, but it is a little odd, but it does save the town it will save this town a significant amount of money. And Sarah Gilbride, also another Rockport resident, was hired to replace Megan, and that was done not a minute too soon because she's really hit the ground running and has picked up in finance and in assessing.
So when calls come in for the assessing office, do they go to Sarah, or do they say, Carrie will call you back tomorrow?
They go to Sarah.
Okay.
And
So we haven't, our public, the ability for the public to at least start something going hasn't been.
diminished at all,
Okay.
no.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of places that we will gain benefit from. I can't remember what he said just recently. When it comes to personal property, that was what Kerry was talking about today, was the personal property stuff. When he goes to do his personal property stuff, can't remember her name, and Caitlin in Camden has already started working on personal property stuff there and has come up with a plan of how to move forward with that. And all of the templates and all of the paperwork is already done that we can just transfer over and use and just change the names Camden to Rockport and the process. So we're able to streamline the process and have them the same in both towns. So there's benefits beyond just the saving of money. So I think that's been, I'm hopeful that this will be just one of the areas that we will be able to do a cooperative work between the two towns. The old cruiser was sold, and we got $6,001 for that, which is good. We do get we roll equipment over so that it has some value left. The police department is doing more directed patrols at sporting events at the schools, so that they have a more active police presence. When there's an event at the school, they stop and they're there. I mean, if you think you have several hundred people gathering in one place, just having a police officer show up occasionally is a big help. The chief has been working with the other chiefs in the county on a burn grant, which is, these grants are available, and they generally are awarded to the county and then divvied up to the towns. And so he's been working on that. There were only 2 applicants to the patrol officer job that was recently recently advertised, but both of those applicants had already attended the academy. So general assistance has been busy over the last month with an average. Previously had been about 2 residents a day coming in for assistance, but Stacy said this past few days it's dwindled down to 1 a day, which is an improvement. The library, they're all moved in and they're getting comfortable. I think that the library move went extremely smoothly. Thanks to all of the help and support of the volunteers. The public works guys did above and beyond the call of duty. Thank God there was no snow. So they were able to do a lot of that work. And the library staff making that shift over, which could have been a huge problem, go very, very, very smoothly. And the library staff, Ben particularly wanted to thank the public works guys helping out so much for the move. It wouldn't have happened so smoothly without them. They're they're the can-do guys that, if you give them a problem, they love to solve those kind of move stuff, fix this, build that. They're all over that stuff. They just love that stuff. Town clerk, tax collector, dog letters have gone out. 303 calls are people, they make personal phone calls to every dog owner and let them know that they've got to get in and register their dogs. And 34 letters were sent out to people that couldn't be reached by phone. 96 harbor bills were mailed out to people all the people on the waiting list, and the foreclosures notices have been sent out. So that's my story.
Do we have any questions for the town manager?
I get one just super quick. Why do we bill people on a wait list?
Because they pay money to be on the waiting list.
Just to be on the waiting list?
Oh, yeah.
That's the best racket ever.
Betcha.
All right.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, we were finding years ago that there were a lot of people on the wait list,
They were dead.
Yeah.
but because it just rolled over.
Right.
That's a very common practice. I think I've been on the waiting
Well, I
list
mean,
for
it makes sense.
Inner
It's
Harbor and
competitive.
Camden for 18 years.
Might have more success getting on the Inner Harbor here.
Yeah. I think
Except
I've
he
been-
doesn't know anybody in Rockport. So.
That's true. Okay. Any other questions?
Not to him, but I think the heater's gone off and
I do
it's
too.
really cold in here.
Yeah,
And
tough.
if you can turn it back on.
I was wondering why I was getting.
I know, I
beat
was gonna
up.
get up and do it, but I was like, I don't wanna
It's set down to
interrupt him.
65.
You have to push the button and then you have to turn it
Okay.
up.
All right.
So I shouldn't bring this up.
So let's then move
No,
to
I
our
wouldn't.
next item of business, and this is actually under unfinished business. The town manager has a recommendation.
Yes, if I might, I'd like to recommend that the board, I need the board to confirm my appointment per charter of Benjamin Blackman as our library director. This is a formal action the board has to take according to charter. Ben has been in the position of interim library director for a little over 6 months. We established a couple days ago, just slightly over 6 months. I've been very pleased with his performance, and I want to state that there's 2 pieces to it. That one is he executed the move very well. The move went very smoothly, and logistically there was a lot that went into that. But beyond that, Ben's ability in the library, I think, has been better than what I had hoped. And I think he has the skills that we need to lead the library as we move forward into a new building. And so my recommendation is I would like to appoint him. I need your confirmation to do that.
I move to approve the appointment of Benjamin Blackman as library director.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Further discussion?
I think Ben will do a great job. I've been impressed with him since he first started, and if any of those of us who were around volunteering on the move, Ben was everywhere. And not only was he everywhere, he knew what was going on, and he knew what to do and what to tell other people to do, and that's what we want in a leader.
I'd like to thank his evil twin brother who showed up that day so that he could be, and for not getting paid.
Okay. It's not too late to back out. No. Okay. Okay. All in favor of the motion to appoint? Congratulations.
Welcome. Yes.
Uh-oh. Department head stuff.
Work.
Welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
Snide comment. Snide comment.
Okay. We have no public hearing this evening, new business. We've already acknowledged a gift to the town, the payment in lieu of taxes from Center for Furniture Craftsmanship. We're very grateful for that. Committee resignations, we do have one here from Roger Jones to resign from the Recreation Committee.
Sarah never made it in.
Haven't seen it. So we'll table that one. I'll hold that one for next month.
I'll shoot her out another email.
Okay.
I move to accept Roger Jones's resignation for the Recreation Committee and offer great thanks for his many, many years of service on that committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roger has done a lot of work for the town over
Yes.
the many, many years that he's been here, so we are very grateful for it. So we will have a letter written up, drafted up for us to sign. No further.
I can also attest, you can have robust disagreement with Roger, and he'll still cut your hair and make it look nice, and not have it be like a mohawk, because that's what it looks good, Bill. Just say it looks good.
It doesn't look like a mohawk.
Okay.
Man, that's where I was going.
All in favor of the motion? Thank you. We have a couple of appointments that we need to make. One is for Rachel McCormick to the Recreation Committee. We have her application here in front of us, and she's here. Rachel, why don't you come on up to the podium over here? You are with, you are the Fitness and Wellness Director down at
Community Health and Wellness.
Community Health and Wellness, down there,
At Penn Bay.
at Penn Bay,
Down there.
down there. Well,
Southern
you
Southern
almost-
Rockport.
You know, it's on its way out of here, there. Okay, anyway, do we have any questions for Rachel?
We had a bigger, please.
Right, I don't have a question about you, Rachel, even though I really would like to hear a bit more about you other than what you wrote. But I have a bigger question. I don't know if we should talk to her first or talk about it, but my question is along the lines of the fact that Rachel doesn't live here in Rockport, but she is representing a Rockport company that has a very important role in our community, especially as far as recreation is concerned. But we never made a final decision on how we were going to handle representatives. So, and don't take any of this personally, because it's not about you, is that, you know, if she were to leave the hospital, then she would be, if we appoint her as herself, then she would still be on this committee, even though she was no longer with the hospital. Now, I would presume she's a lovely person and she would resign for us, but if she chose not to be a lovely person
I
and
would
do
assume
that-
she's a lovely person and should stay on with us. given that.
well, but then the question is how many people outside of the community do we want on here when they were appointed for a specific reason? And so, you know, I guess my thing is if the person appointed for instance, the hospital, were no longer there, I would hope the hospital would, if we put the onus on the hospital, they would find somebody else to say, here's the person that we'd like to put there, rather than us then having to look for someone and say, wow, where in the community do I look? So it's more of a concept of, do we appoint her to the committee, or do we appoint a representative from Penn Bay Healthcare to the committee that is Rachel at this moment?
I guess I like the idea of appointing her, because I think if we appoint, if we save a position for the hospital, let's say, and we lose a little bit of control as to how long that person serves, or even if we get somebody different every month to show up to those meetings, if it's just a hospital representative. So I like the idea of having the person do it, and I understand the point that if she leaves the hospital, what do we do then? She's on the committee because we appointed her, and we really can't remove her without some sort of due process hearing or something like that. But on the other hand, as Jeff kind of alluded to, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting anything, but if she's doing a good job on the committee and she still lives locally and has some interest in Rockport, then I wouldn't see any issue. My thing with the out-of-town folks on the committees from the beginning has been, as long as we don't have a majority of out-of-town people, I'm okay with it in terms of an advisory committee. So I would advocate for appointing the person rather than with the idea that they're here, that their affiliation with an organization in Rockport is a good thing.
And my only thing, because Tracy and I talked about this a little bit before, it's like I'm bouncing back and forth, because what happens if we just appoint a representative and Rachel can't be there, so they send Tom, and Tom's now voting on something he doesn't really know about, and maybe he's going to make a horrible decision, but that's not necessarily on us, that's on the hospital. I would more trust Rachel to make a decision even if she wasn't. So I'm confused here as well, because I'm in full agreement with what Tracy's saying, but you can see it going poorly one way or the other depending on the situation.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
All right.
one of the options would be for the board to appoint Rachel as a representative from the hospital, as a representative from the hospital, and you can add the caveat that as long as she's employed at the hospital, and then after, if she's not employed at the hospital, then she would be vacating her position, and then we'd have to go through this process again.
So I would much rather, counter to what our town manager said, I would much rather look at the way that we got a hold of Rachel, so to speak, as this board reaching out to an entity that has, that, knows health and wellness, and that says, we know of a person that would, is excited to serve in this thing. From my perspective, I don't really care, even if a majority of hardworking people want to be on a Rockport committee and they're from out of town. God bless them for giving us their time and expertise. So I have no problem with, in the abstract or in the specific, in saying this is a person. How we got to that person is not a controlling factor, nor should replacement of that person be something that has to go through the same channels. This board, as glamorous as this looks, and and the $1.22 an hour that it works out to be.
When did you get
That much?
raised?
Oh, I've been slacking
We've
off.
had a lot fewer meetings this year.
But
Okay, let's
our
move along
the
here.
the real way that we affect the town is that we go and invite other people to serve for the town. It's one of the very few things that we can actually do that has a longer term effect, is to say, I'm a member of the select board, and I really think that you would be good to be on this committee, or X, Y, or Z, or even to run for select board, something like that. So ultimately, it's our responsibility. The fact that with Rachel, we got her through the hospital, that's great. But I'd love to see this board make a policy that says, let whomever wants to give their guidance to the town do so.
I will make this an agenda item for next month for the further discussion. We need to move along here. We're well behind our schedule. If that's acceptable, okay?
Could we ask Rachel to give us her minute and a half breakdown on, well, not like on the committee specifically, but on our general topic specifically? How would she, as a person who goes to work for that organization day in and day out, you know that place better than we do, in the event that you did not have your job anymore, how would you see the process going with the hospital to get a replacement? And is that an all right question for me to ask Bill?
do you think you could try to answer that? Sort of
Like, well-
outside of the scope of what we usually ask people.
Well, knowing the organization like I do, I know that there is a large focus on community health, wellness, and being a part of the town. And so I don't think it would be an issue, should I leave the organization, to be able to find someone that would be able to serve on the committee. It was quick and easy for us at the time because you reached out to my boss's boss, and he wants to be a part of it. So, I don't think that's going to be an issue. There is a commitment to the town and to community health. So, so in that respect, I honestly don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So, provided I continue to do well in my position, I'll be here. So, and I do have a vested interest in it, both personally and professionally. So.
Chairman? Can I
Yeah.
ask?
All right.
Could you just kind of go over what your job is there?
Sure.
And just to explain to both the board and members of the public what your role is at the hospital and what you
Sure, absolutely. So as the manager of community health and wellness, we're housed at Penn Bay over at the Picker Center, the Picker Family Resource Center. And what we are doing, we're actually working collaboratively with Waldo County General Hospital in their community health and wellness department. And we're going to be developing some robust programming when it comes to, again, just community health. So physical movement, healthy mind and body, and healthy eating type programming, prevention, and health promotion. And so we're working across both Knox and Waldo County now to be able to provide that.
And how does that dovetail with being on the recreation committee?
Absolutely. It's, again, it's for us to be able to utilize the resources and for us to be able to provide resources to the town. We're developing a wellness trail at the hospital itself, so there's another avenue to be able to add recreation to our community, and we want to be able to utilize what is there. And it's our job to get out in the community and keep people well, rather than having folks have to come to the hospital because they're sick.
Let's continue our questioning of Rachel if we have any more. Do we have any more? No? Do we have a motion to appoint her?
I move to appoint Rachel McCormick to the Recreation Committee with a term expiration of June 30th, 2017.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Should there have been a comma there? No commas?
That's the way the motion reads.
No,
Okay.
that's my motion.
Well, that's how the way the motion read.
That's how I made the motion.
You can vote against it if you want the hospital in there.
Choice to make a motion that way.
I just didn't, I'm fine with it either way. I'm pretty sure, but I'm a trusting
I think,
person, which can
First
get
of all,
you in trouble.
it's a term of only a little more than a year right now because it's a staggered term, so I don't think the issues are going to come up. And I also think that I want to comment that we haven't exactly had people breaking down the doors to join the Recreation Committee, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is a
Actually, we
good
got a second
opportunity.
application here tonight, too. All right. Do we have further discussion on this? All in favor of the appointment? That is unanimous. Thank you and
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you very much for your service.
We also have an application here for Ron Howard. Oh, where? Oh, yes?
I'm curious, you're going to put this on next month's agenda, this idea, which means at public comment next month, we will not be allowed to talk about it because it's an agenda item. The public comment is about other things other than the agenda items. Is there a point where you are willing to take a comment from the public about the idea of a corporation having a slotted spot
During
in town government?
our discussion of that agenda item.
Public comment is all.
You will take opinions from the public then?
Yeah, that's what it is, how it reads is public comment will be welcome prior to each agenda item.
Then I will wait till next month.
Okay. We also have the application here from Ron Howard to be on the Recreation Committee. It wasn't listed, but it is here.
Do we have any idea, though, what the term would be?
Yes, it's
Okay.
it's through June 30th of this year, 2016.
I noticed that
Yeah.
in the email. Can we, I mean, it seems to me
It's,
Can
it's
we
to
bump it up another 3 years?
it's to try and, it's to finish out terms and to get this term staggered.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but
I
where
would-
it's only a few months,
Ken,
We'll re-up it.
just to give you a little information that may make it easier. When I reached out to Ron, I said, do you have, so I know it's like short notice, I've been trying to put this thing together. Do you have someone you can grab? And he said, I'll put myself in for right now and we'll kind of go from there. So I think maybe having a shorter term for Ron and then dedicating another person after the fact for the full 3 years may actually work for him better.
okay, that's fine.
Beauty.
So, I know most of us know Ron from he was on the Conservation Commission for a number of years.
I tried to recruit him, so you got him to fill paperwork out. Good work.
It's because his granddaughter and my daughter have been bonding at the farm.
Okay,
It's the Izzy
because
and Cora show.
I've
so
been talking to him for
I
like a
wore 'em
year,
down, I
so
wore 'em
good
down.
work.
You got to do the Clover Buds program at Aldermere, 4-H
Okay.
Clover Buds.
Let's move ahead here. Do we have a motion to appoint Ron?
I move to appoint Ron Howard to the Recreation Committee with a term expiration of June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Good. Now, we have our auditor's
Exciting.
report.
Thank you for turning the heat on.
Yes. Why don't you come on up here? Rick,
Yes,
did you bring the,
you got them previously. I sent you an email saying that that you had them, you've had them for,
the
Is there enough
report
for
that
the
was
rest
sent
of
out today was,
Oh, no, the letter that we
The letter.
got today.
But you
letter
said-
was-
Thank you.
Jerry, if you want to shoot over my shoulder, you can do a close-up of this.
I don't know what letter.
not?
So that letter we got today, you pointed out was something
It wasn't a
else.
management letter from the auditor, it was something else, and there was at least a page missing.
Yeah.
It looked like the letter that,
Let's just forget about that. Let's move right on here. I'm sure that James is gonna bring us completely up to date.
You'll get us all straightened out.
Okay. Do you folks have a copy of your audit with you, or are there a few there?
remember that we got it.
Well,
We got it
Okay.
like months
you
ago.
got them a while back. Well, this handout that One East just passed out will come in extra handy then, because it
Okay.
makes references to various pages within the audited financial statements, so. Again, One East is with me this evening, and she's worked for many years managing the audit and performing a great deal of the field work and drafting the financial statements. In the past, there would be a management letter accompanying the report, which talked about the preparation of the financial statements, and the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is kind of taken a turn on that area and basically said, you need to have one or more individuals involved in the town that can understand the financial statements and can supervise the preparation of the financial statements. If you have that in place, it doesn't need to be a management letter comment. If you don't have that in place, then you have some serious problems, and your auditors can't draft your financial statements. It'd have to be drafted by somebody else. So, with your finance director, we've, been able to accomplish that. And so that's the reason why you don't have a management letter this year, because we don't have that financial statement preparation comment that we had in the past, so. The financial statements, if you had them in front of you, would have would start with an independent auditor's report, which expresses our opinion on your financial position for the year and the financial statements that accompany them. And you have an unmodified audit opinion again this year, which is a clean opinion on your financial statements, note disclosures, and so forth. But that is the first couple pages of the report. It talks about management's responsibility, which is to prepare the financial statements or understand and supervise the preparation of the financial statements. Our responsibility to express an opinion on them. And then it also talks about other supplementary information that is included in the financial reporting package. Following that, on the pages 3 through 7, we have the management's discussion and analysis. And the first page that we've given you in the handout kind of summarizes you know, what we feel is the most important part of that is where we discuss your financial position at the end of the year. And you ended this fiscal year with total combined ending fund balances of $4,766,000 and change, with $2,146,445 being your general unassigned fund balance. And that represents 14.5% of your expenses for the year. And you can probably pick that up in the handout that I've given you. And we've also compared you to some other municipalities, Bar Harbors, Hamden, and we've put in Castine this year. Castine's actually a newer engagement for us, so I just have them in there for the past couple of years. But you can see kind of where you stand in comparison with some of these other municipalities, both in terms of dollars and percentage of your expenses. Any questions before we continue on?
Quick one if I could.
Sure.
You had said that you need to have someone who understands the finances. Are you talking about a town employee or like someone on our investment committee? Can you just narrow that?
Yeah, it would be in the management area. So it would be like your finance director, your town manager, people that we work with in completing the audit that can understand the financial statements as they're put together, and versus just saying, well, here they are, the auditors put them together, they must be correct, you know, to be able to understand and you know, tie these numbers back to your accounting records and things of that nature.
In the case of this report, which was through June 30th, 2015, that was Ginny Lindsay that was there.
Correct.
Going ahead, it's Megan.
Megan is correct, yes. The financial statements begin on page 8 of the report. We've got several pages here. They kind of go in a general format of, you have what's called the government-wide financial statements, which have all of the town's assets, both long-term and short-term included, all of the town's liabilities, which are not just those obligations that are going to be satisfied in the near future, but those are going to be satisfied over the next number of years. You know, all of your long-term debt would be included there. And then the net position of the town, with the biggest number there being your net investment in your fixed assets. That's, you know, the biggest dollar item here.
James, on
Yes.
long-term obligations, that also includes retirement benefits, correct?
It is, yes, it is.
What we're paying into the Maine State Retirement Program.
That's right, and as a new entry here, we have your net pension liability, which is your estimated liability in your estimated portion of the unfunded liability of the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. Beginning on page 10, the financial statements are now in the same accounting basis as you operate your internal accounting record. You put your budget together in the same basis and operate in the you know, the reports that you would receive from the finance department would be on the same basis. Another way of looking at that would be the fixed assets are not part of these numbers. You're looking at cash and short-term liabilities, and you're treating, for example, the payment of a debt as an expense. It's something you budget for to retire those. So again, from page 10 through the remainder of the financial statements, that's the accounting basis there. Notes to the financial statements pick up, I just want to mention briefly, they pick up on page 7, and they continue through page 40. So there's 23 pages of notes to the financial statements, talking about accounting policies that the town follows. The last 6 pages of the financial statements are specifically dedicated to your pension obligation with Maine Public Employees Retirement System. So it talks about the total system as well as your share of the obligation, you know, your estimated share of the obligation of the system. So that was new. I think I may have mentioned that to you last year, that was going to be coming on this year's financial reporting. Okay. Following the notes to the financial statements, we have some exhibits that would pick up when they show budget to actual comparisons for the town. Exhibit A3, which is on page number 41 in the financial statements. I'm sorry, page 47 of the financial statements, shows your change in your unassigned fund balance for the year. You began the year with $1,959,775. Your budget was to bring that amount down by $60,000, which you did. You know, you reduced your taxation by that amount. But in total, you put nearly $297,000 back into surplus with favorable budget variances during this operating year. Approximately $59,000 of revenues in excess of budget, and almost $238,000 of favorable budget variances on the expense side. In other words, expenses below budget. So that put $296,670 back into your unassigned fund balance. So even though the budget was to bring that down by 60, you actually increased it by $236,000 and change this past year. The pages that follow take your other operating funds, your other funds and trust funds and special revenue funds and so forth. Break those down into more detail. I didn't have any notes for you on those. In the handout I've given you, we've added in a couple of graphs on long-term debt, comparing you to those same other towns. We're having a increased interest in this with our clients asking, you know, where are we percentage-wise as compared to our state valuation, and in terms of some of our, you know, other municipalities. So on this second page here, you can see you folks are on the lower side with your debt, both in terms of dollars and as a percentage of your state valuation. And one reason I wanted to include Castine in this is they, you know, percentage-wise, as a percent of their state valuation, they are well within the statutory limits, but they are, you know, they've with a big bond issue that they did this past year, have crept close to 4% of their state valuation in debt. Yes?
Can I ask a question about this one?
Yeah.
Do any of these other towns have their own school systems? So that their school debt is part of this?
Bar Harbor has a municipal school department.
So it's part of your audit that would include this?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But in Castine, they have a municipal school department, but if they have any debt, it is very, very minimal. I'm talking like a lease on photocopiers or something like that. So it'd be very minimal, any debt that they would have. Their debt is you know, town infrastructure. They're doing a big downtown project, and they just did a $6.2 million bond issue for that, and wastewater and water debt there as well.
Okay, so out of these three other ones, Bar Harbor is the only one that you know includes their schools as well? Because ours obviously doesn't. We have a separate.
That's correct, yeah.
But they do have debt that
Yeah, and
we
their
have
school,
to pay on.
their municipal school department is K through 8. Their high school is separate from the K through 8 school. And their debt for the school, Moniz, do you recall if Bar Harbor has? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you folks have any other questions, that's all the info I had put together for you.
Assuming, and somebody on the board, maybe Rick can correct me, that our infrastructure bonds were not taken out by the time this audit was done.
Yeah, I don't think.
Not by June.
Yeah, so they would not be included.
Yeah, you've got some debt coming on in this year that you're operating in right now. That's exactly right.
Yeah, 1.6.
Well, the,
Yeah.
we have the sewer bond that should be on this, because we already took that money out.
But the bond for the Opera
But the
House
bond
wasn't
for
in.
the infrastructure hadn't
No,
come.
the infrastructure isn't
Yeah, like a $350,000 bond for the Opera House and another almost 1.4 million for infrastructure projects that will be coming on in this year that you're in now.
That'll pop that up a little bit, although still pretty low.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
maybe.
Yeah.
Other questions on the audit? Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your time this evening.
No concerns, before I let you go, that we should be, it seems like you're not telling us that we have any concerns.
No, if we had any major concerns, there would be management letter comments for you in a separate, letter. And, in the past, we've been basically in that financial preparation, statement preparation mode. But, any others that would come about in the process of doing our audit, we'd communicate to you in writing. Is there anything that comes to mind, Moniz, from doing the field work that you can?
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And maybe next year we can coordinate when you deliver us the report and when you come and speak to us a little closer together.
Yes, yes.
There was a note in your package to bring the report with you.
Yeah.
There was?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Well, see,
no,
this is this thing that was
because
handed out
I
last
just-
night, or handed
Yeah,
out
we
this
didn't get
morning.
that until
Didn't get it,
today,
yeah. Right, exactly, you didn't
until
get
we
it.
were already here.
Right.
Okay.
It was there, but you didn't get it.
We now go to our investment committee.
Mr. Chairman, do we want to have a motion?
Oh,
here?
that's right. Yes, we need to have a motion to accept.
I move to accept the audit report ending June 30th, 2015, as presented by James Wadman, CPA.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? We can place it in the files now. Bill Freeman for the investment committee.
Thank you. I do have copies of the comments I'm going to make, and I'll give them to you as soon as we're done with the session, so you can see some of these numbers. But pleased to provide you with an update on the Rockport Investment Committee. We have currently 5 members, so we're at full strength, and we meet quarterly and review the investments of the town. So as of the end of last year, we had about $1,300,000 in funds that we oversee. I'm going to cover with you tonight just 4 different subjects, and I'll try and go quickly. One is just give you an update on the status of the investments of the town, talk a little bit more in depth about the cemetery fund, and then 2 other things, talk a little bit about future relationships with our current investment advisor, and then finally just talk a little bit about socially responsible investing, which has come up, I know, with conversations you've had. So, as I mentioned, our committee now has responsibility as of the end of last year for about $1,301,000, and is divided into 3 different funds. One, the Public Assistance Fund, which has $398,000, the Wastewater Fund, which has $368,000, and the Cemetery Fund, which has $535,000 to make up that total. These funds are invested in what I call a diversified portfolio, where we're talking about 60% in equity, 30% in bonds, and about 10% in cash. That's the normal, again, investment. It's a little bit different now, I'll tell you about it, but for the last 9 years, we've used Bar Harbor Trust as the folks who have been investing these funds. Currently, it's a little bit different because we are in 65% equities and 35% cash. And the reason for that is going back late 2013, we made the decision to take the cash and the bond portion from the portfolio back and invest it ourselves. What's happening, probably a lot of you remember or still remember today, the money market funds today are about, you can get maybe 1/10%. And unfortunately, we were paying Bar Harbor 1% to manage our money. So we decided to pull it back and invest it here locally. At the same time, the bonds we were looking at, we were getting very, very low returns. And we require A-grade, investment-grade bonds and they were low numbers also. We decided to cash those in and go to cash also. At the same time, with interest rates going up, we thought the face value on those bonds was going to be going down. So the best thing to do is to be prudent and go into cash. What happened as a result of that move, the town has made about $24,000. So about $12,000, half of it because we, again, saved the management fee of 1%, and because we invested it with the first here in Rockport, and they've given us 0.85%. So between the two, we were able to make $24,000. Obviously, we'll go back and change that once the market changes and the bond market goes up. But for the time being, anyway, we're very comfortable with what we have with the investments. We've been, I'd say, relatively satisfied with the work, the performance of our funds with the Bar Harbor Trust. We meet with them once a year, review where they're going, answer our questions on their investments. And since we started with them back in 2007, the return the town has had has been 6.1% return. And that's versus 5.7% for the S&P 500. So for the long term, it's been, we've done well on the investments. However, in the short term, in the last 3 years, as many of you probably know, the S&P has had a great couple of years. That the S&P, our equity funds for the last 3 years have been 8.3% versus 14.3% the S&P 500. Most of the portfolio is all in individual equity positions from probably 10 to 30 different individual stocks, and that's what Bar Harbor manages for us. Last year, obviously, was not a good year for the stock market. It wasn't a good year for our investments either. So we were down 4.5% on the equity portion of our investments, whereas the S&P was up like 1.38%. So not a good year for us. Last year, you might be interested in this also, we wanted to find out what other municipalities were doing in the state. So we sent out a questionnaire to different towns around the state and asked them, how were they investing their money, what kind of returns they were getting. I was surprised, or we were surprised, that the meager response we got from the questionnaire. We had 5 responses back. And it's interesting in looking at those responses, most of the towns have their finance director or their town manager just invest the funds. It doesn't appear they have many investment committees in these towns. Most of them are all invest in CDs, short-term, 1-year, 2-year CDs, getting around 2% return. Some of them have some bond ladders, but most of them are CDs. So our 6% over the last 9 years looks pretty good versus the 1.5 to 2% that these other towns have had. So the towns, interesting, we got responses from Biddeford, Sanford, Falmouth, South Portland, and Bar Harbor were the ones that replied to us.
How many did you send out, sir?
I think probably, I don't know if you weren't here, I know, Megan, but I would assume we sent out probably 40, 50 different, yeah.
I don't know of many towns that have investment committees helping advise them.
Would appear from these questionnaires that they just use their finance director or town manager just to invest those funds.
I personally am thankful you are helping us.
Well, we have Bob Campbell's our chair, and he's, pretty savvy. And we've got 3 other people who are pretty savvy on the group too that know financing. So that's kind of a general where we are with the investment of the funds. I'm going to jump now to the cemetery committee because I know there's some questions there. I mentioned we have $535,000 in the fund for the cemetery. 441 or 442 approximately $1,000 of that fund are in I'd call restricted funds. These are folks that paid for burial sites, perpetual care, and so forth. So that money is set. We can't obviously spend it as we want. It has to be spent on the library. The other portion of that, the $135,000, is what you'd call non-restricted. It's the money we've earned on the principal amount in the cemetery funds. So that is what you can use if you need to draw down to help with the maintenance of the cemetery. If you could look at maybe a 4% return on the, again, $362,000 part of the equity funds in the cemetery fund, you'd probably have a return of about $14,000 each year. But obviously, as I mentioned before, last year we lost 4.5%, and this year is not looking promising either. I looked at the prior year's disbursement from the cemetery fund. In 2012, it appears you took no money. 2013, no money. 2014, $3,400. And in this year, $15,000, which has not been taken from the fund yet, but I'm assuming that before the fiscal year is over, that $15,000 will be drawn from those funds. So we'll have in the unrestricted portion, okay, the cemetery fund, around $119,000 available as we go forward. However, as I said, it's not looking real bright out there. The S&P as of yesterday afternoon is down 9.3% for the year. And, you know, history shows 75% of the time in the last 16 election years, okay, where we start the year is usually where we end the year. So if you're a betting person, you'd say we're probably going to be down in the stock market in this year. Based on, you know, our investments and the outlook and so forth, our committee would recommend that you not take more than $5,000 this year. Obviously, you're free to take whatever you want out of there. There's money there. But we'd suggest to go on the conservative side and take $5,000 out, which would be for your next fiscal year, which, you know, would probably be withdrawn in 2017.
Contracts. Well, that's for, when we look at the cemetery budget, some of that is funded by the taxpayer and some of it may be funded other ways. I think the 3,400, if I'm recalling correctly, Linda, was used for the software purchase. Is that right?
We paid for part of the software, part of that should still be in reserve, our holding needs, we have not completed it as yet.
Okay. But I think in the past, if we've drawn from that fund from the cemetery, it's been for a special item of one sort or another, or to offset
Well,
expenses.
in the short term, I mean, in the last 6 years, maybe.
Right.
Previous to that, I don't know if that was it like that previous to that? Or was there,
And for a while, every year was the same amount that was being
Right.
taken out. When we got to 2012, I remember the prior town manager realizing that we had overdrawn at that
We were
point.
taking
We were
more than we
taking
should.
more than when we were earning. Didn't look at the detail that Bill just presented to us tonight, restricted versus unrestricted, but just at what the earnings on the cemetery fund was versus how much it was taking out. We were taking out far more than when it was earning.
right. So that's a
And hence
recent.
the reason for 12 and 13 having taken no money out.
Right,
To get back to it.
I think in a normal year for investment returns and so forth, we should be able to give you, you know, a number you can use each year. We feel comfortable that you can take as a, again, return out of the funds we have.
So you're suggesting only 5,000?
We're saying 5,000, we would suggest. It's conservative, but with the market down and you're gonna take another 15,000 out right now, is it, I know you're looking for more money than that, but it's your choice. We're just saying, we
Well,
think
one
you
of
ought
the
to.
reasons that it became up as an issue is because we are considering a capital expense for the cemeteries of a columbarium, which would allow more
I saw that, yeah.
cremation burials and things like that, and may also increase the revenues too, if we have that, so, but that's good information to know.
Well, we can keep you, you know, up to date on the funds and so forth, and you can make the ultimate decision, so. Jumping now to the third item, just to talk about Bar Harbor Trust. As I said, we've been, you know, relatively satisfied with them. You saw the returns they've come up with over the last 9 years and so forth. We are currently in discussions with them concerning limiting the number of positions, weightings, okay, in the portfolio. So currently, they won't allow any one of the segments in the S&P to be more than 30%. So if it's in computers or it's in healthcare, utilities and so forth, it's a max of 30%. We'd like to go to 20%, not to have any one weighting more than that 20% of the total portfolio. So we're discussing it with them. If we can get them to agree to it, we'll probably come back to you and ask you to approve a change in the investment policy for the town, saying there's a limit of 20% on any weighting in the portfolio. So we're not ready to do that yet. We'll be back to you. The other thing we've had discussions off and on is whether we should go out for a RFP, and I think we don't have a consensus on the committee to go through that process and see what else is out there. We may come to that, but at the moment, we're sticking with Bar Harbor Trust for the time being. Then on the last issue on the socially responsible investing and this so-called dirty energy investing, which has come up. Owen's given me a couple of sheets, and there are some activities here in the state where different organizations are trying to make sure they're not investing in equities that represent fossil fuels. We don't have a choice, you'll know. The package we buy from Bar Harbor is one that they use with all kinds of customers, not just us. So when they buy IBM, every one of these accounts buys IBM. So we don't have the option of picking and choosing and say which stocks we want. Whether we want one of these in oil or don't want it, we just don't have that option. Right at the moment, probably doesn't surprise you, we have no oil stocks with those where they are today. We don't, but doesn't mean in the future, if it looks bright, they're going to want Exxon in there to get the return. So just so you know, we don't have that option with the particular investment tool that we're using today with the Bar Harbor Trust.
Just like a gentle pushback. I mean, I'd say you've got close to 1.3 options, reasons to, or 1.3 million. You can't, I know that you, because we talked about this a little bit at that investment committee, and I get it. They put them into the larger funds and stuff like that. It's not the mom and pop stuff. But, I mean, I don't understand why you can't make a request.
Well, no, we can make a request, but I'm just saying, at least their answers in the past have been that we are in a portfolio that they're, again, putting together for lots of their customers. They're not specific to the Rockport Investment Committee. So for them to go in every time they say, we're going to buy IBM, say we're going to buy for all the accounts except we're not going to buy it for Rockport, we have to go in there and manually, make a change. I don't think they'll be receptive. Doesn't mean we can't keep asking them. They have done some other things for us, but this one, in investing, would be, again, for the amount of money they make on us, not something they're probably going to move, but doesn't mean we can't ask. Typically, our investments today are about 75% large cap, about 5% small cap, and about 20% in international is where the equities are. Yep.
Tracy?
So my question goes back to putting it out to like an RFP.
Yeah.
Do you know the last time we did that?
It's got to be, well.
It was when the Bar Harbor was hired.
9 years ago.
Yeah.
Was it that long ago?
2007 is when they were hired by the town.
Yeah.
But I thought we, and I'm looking at you and you have no idea because I know Jenny would go, oh, we did it then. But I thought, didn't Jenny do something?
She did a quick query of a number of places as to what their fee structure would be.
Yeah, so it wasn't a
and what
whole
the
investment,
returns
I
were,
think.
yeah.
I think it was just where do we stand?
We did
So-
go out and ask about other, towns and so forth, what they're doing, yeah.
That was like 2 years, 3
Yeah,
years.
it didn't seem like it was very long
We
ago.
had the
Yeah, it
chain
was.
where they pulled the cash out.
Yeah.
and did it
Right, and where to
outright.
put it
So
and all that good
was
kinda
within
stuff.
the last 3 years or so.
Okay, okay.
Owen?
Would it be helpful, I know that, like College of the Atlantic, Unity College, they've done a divest from fossil fuels. Would it be useful for me to do some digging to find out who they're funneling their investments? Because they've got massive endowments and things like that. They would fall under the same caliber of amount of funds that you're putting towards these. So it would strike me that they would be both invested in the same place. Would that be helpful to find out who they're going
There's no
through?
harm in doing it. If you're willing to take the time, sure.
Sure.
And let us know a little bit about what their returns are.
Yep. Because
And-
that was my big thing, is if it's gonna be a substantial loss to the town, I'm a realist, that's pragmatic, okay, no. But if it's gonna be somewhat similar and we can say we're more socially responsible, I'd be a big fan of that.
Sure. No, we're happy to look at anything,
Thank you.
but we're looking at the return for you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I have unless there's other questions. Yep.
Question, looking through the investment policy, and some of your presentation, I guess, answers the question, but I was looking at the section I, investment diversification, talking about the equities and what percentage they have to be and the like, and I wondered about mutual funds. But it sounds to me like basically what Bar Harbor is acting as is as a mutual fund for you.
They're selecting, as I say, between 20 and 30 individual equities. And there'll be familiar names that you see in there. I mean, they, had IBM as a pretty good position, and they sold it smartly here about 6 months ago and made a lot of money, thankfully. So they're going in and looking at the positions on Xeroxes and all those, and selecting those with the, again, 75% in mind, large cap, which is where we are primarily.
So they wouldn't be purchasing any mutual funds or
They
anything
don't.
like that?
They have their own analysts, they're selecting funds. I mean, it doesn't mean, that we've thought about this, we've talked about the investment committee. Why not take Vanguard Total Market, which is, .10, .10 investment management cost for you, and just let it run with the market?
No.
And forget about paying 1% to Bar Harbor. So, I mean, those things we talk about, but it's a
Okay.
matter of the risk we want to take. Yeah.
Thank you.
But
Thank you,
Thank
Bill.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
You have the recommendation for the policy change?
I thought he said they weren't ready to
Well,
recommend.
Oh, you're not ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that, I'm sorry.
Originally, Rick, we talked about that, but
Okay.
the concern is that we gotta make
20%.
sure that they're willing to do it.
Right.
Because if we put it in there now and you approve it, and they are not gonna do it, then we're in conflict with our
I
policy.
missed that, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I would point out too, on the investment policy, the first section where it talks about how the town manager is hired is incorrect.
Yeah, all of
Oh,
it.
is it?
It says the town manager is the chief operating officer appointed by the chair and confirmed by the board, and that's not correct. It should read something like appointed by the board under the process set forth in the charter. Because technically, it hasn't happened, but it would be possible for the chair of the board to not approve of the town manager that the board ultimately hires. Because it has to be 4 out of 5.
All right, we will make that change.
Bill can, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know what the wording should be there.
Thank
It's
you.
not gonna change the
No, it
way
isn't.
we
It's-
do investments,
No,
but it's a
not at
wording
all, but
change,
it
yeah,
should be correct.
yeah, okay. Next thing is to respond to the questions raised by the ad hoc, library planning committee. They came up with a list of considerations that they wanted to have addressed. Jan, you guys are on.
The list of considerations that we sent you is not so much something that, that we want to question about, was more a sense of beating to the select board to the punch. When we wrote the RFQ, many individual concerns were left out because many of them are assumed that architects would know. Others were part of a deeper negotiation that we would have. And so we heard that there was some concern both in town and among our members and among the select board members that we not forget the things that we have been talking about for the last 2 or 3 years as being important when we decide about the library. So we sat down individually and wrote out what we were going to be paying attention to. That I took everybody's and kind of prioritized them into most important, and also mentioned, and those are not within each category, they're not in a particularly ranked order. And we sent them off to you for 2 reasons. One was to say, we're paying attention, these are the things that we're paying attention to that came off the top of our heads, and the other was, what do you got to add to our list? Because we're going to be spending a long time now negotiating with architects and guiding architects to a good plan. And so we also want to know what the select board is thinking in its responsibility as representatives of the town, so that we don't neglect to cover all the bases when we're talking with the architects. And that was all it's about.
Okay. Don't go away. We have the list of considerations here. When we last talked or spoke among ourselves, we were gonna come up with a comparable list. When I read through this, remember I sent out that spreadsheet to you. When I read through these, I think that all of the concerns that have been raised to me have been answered, or at least addressed here, that they are being considered by the ad hoc committee. And as you can see, we've got the
RFQ, response to RFQ.
responses to the RFQs in here. Are we
The only thing that I
happy with this, or dissatisfied with any of these, or what?
I have a couple of comments. First, the one that I see that's missing is the Lime Rock Street issue. I would just want architects to know that we would be open to the possibility of closing Lime Rock Street or changing it to one-way or something like that.
That is discussed, and from the RFQs that I've read so far, people are already considering that and have already got their consultants for traffic control, and it was one of the reasons why we asked people if they had MDOT experience, because that would be useful. And we told the architects one side of the street or the other side of the street, or both, basically. So, as we talk to them and as we choose the people that we think are capable enough to give them money to go away and come up with a little more depth, part of the conversation will be that street is negotiable. We do not want to control what the architects think. We don't want to say close it or don't close it. We're just saying that street is negotiable. We are interested in pedestrian safety back and forth to the Opera House. That whole intersection is negotiable. Cost, of course, is an issue, and come back to us with interesting ideas.
Okay, yeah, I wanna make sure that's in there.
I will
Like
make
said,
sure that
And I
I'm-
agree with you that I don't necessarily have a strong opinion one way or the other, but I just want it to be in play.
I will make sure that it's in there.
And then my only other comment was, under the also mentioned category, reasonable cost of design.
Oh, yeah, well.
I wonder if that should be a little higher in the priority list, just based on listening to townspeople come in, and there are a lot of folks in town that are
Well,
concerned about
what I did was the members of the committee submitted things, and I ranked them based on how many people thought of which. That's not necessarily the only way or the best way to go about doing this. Cost of the library is, of course, beyond the top of the list, right there with a big star on it, and everybody will know that there's a seriously limited budget. I'll move that up, and I have no problem with that.
So my comment comes with, grouping it into 3 groups at all, as opposed to, hey, these are things that are open for dialogue. And the good news is you're going to be working with, very, very qualified and creative teams, architectural teams. So I'm not that worried, but at some point, some senior architect is going to send some junior architect off to solve the really most important question of easy book return.
These are not going to the architects as they are stated
Okay.
here.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
This
Okay,
is an internal document. It's between you and I, so to speak. Your committee and my committee.
And the 8 people on the library ad hoc
People on
planning committee.
that committee and the 5 people on this committee.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, understood.
Owen?
I had one or two. I had two. Now I've lost one. I really liked what you had written, Bill, and sorry, Ben. Accept a smaller size with expansion to recommended size in 10 years. Is that summed up by size of building and also mentioned? Because I feel like that's a different, kind of bigger topic of saying build within this X amount of dollar, not this X amount of square footage space. But when you build it, make sure that you're building properly for us to get to our X amount of square footage within a reasonable time frame. Did I word that properly to make sense?
I think so.
It was kind of like a
This is
slalom course
really
for me.
just,
Yeah.
Ken had sort of raised it as well. I only put it on our sheet for discussion.
And I have to say, I would never recommend anybody vote for anything that we know you have to expand before the bond is retired. And unless we're gonna take out a 10-year bond, it seems a little silly to say that we're gonna only do part of it now and we're gonna wait 10 years to do the rest. Now, 20 years, 25 years after a bond is retired, then I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. But I personally would not accept a smaller, I didn't rank these for a variety of reasons, but that particular thing, I personally would not even consider. The only 2 things we voted on as a group were for the size of the library and for the site.
Which is why those are not included as other
Right,
considerations.
because those are givens.
Those are givens.
And if you do this, that says throw out your givens and this is more important. And that's totally not on something I would even.
And I'd
look
rather
at.
not go to that spreadsheet. Let's discuss this.
Yeah, well,
Because
that
I think
concept came
then
from
we
the
don't
spreadsheet.
need to discuss any additional from us, because I think, with that one exception, it's all covered.
I mean, I think one of the things you guys have to, one of the reasons why I think that the library committee did this, and I'm not speaking for Jan, he is the chair, but having sat with this group of people and the way they think about the task they've been asked to do, they are capable of coming up and understanding the things better than I think we are, to be quite frank. It's a very energetic, thoughtful group of people who come up with good ideas. And that's why I hope we appointed them. And I think they're perfectly capable of doing that. So I just saw this list when we got it. I didn't get it previously. I had sent my thoughts to Jan, but, so my thoughts went into this just like everybody else in the groups did. But unless there are specific things that people feel need to be added to this, I think this really kind of encompasses the kinds of things that we were asking about from the very beginning.
Normally, we always ask if anybody else has some comments, and this would be a perfect time.
And then I'm in line.
What?
I'm in line.
Oh, you're in line, okay. You wanna go stand over there?
I might.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Schultz, 45 years of practice in the community in architecture, Schultz and Barclay Architecture, and been involved with doing the Camden Library and the Belfast Library projects, and responding to the RFP for both Rockland and for Brunswick and for Auburn and other libraries, so I'm quite familiar. I think what you're dealing with is a very typical, as I listen to you all, it's very typical to get into the weeds about these nuances of, whether it's you or anyone else. And I suggest that we leave, I guess, more toward what Jeff said. Just let the process move along. Let our committee select the best of the 11 we received. 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever we decide to make presentations. I've recommended to the committee that approach be taken because it'll be very informative for the members of the committee to see how different firms come back to you. Some, as Jan alluded to, may come back with using the entire site in some way, because they're not caught up in all the politics of moving the memorials or not moving the memorials. They're looking at this from their experience of how to better solve a library problem. Some will come up with put the library on the existing site and put parking over there. Some may even come up with, for example, bridging Lime Rock Street, for all I know, and have a second story across. I've run any number of scenarios that this building could look like. I think that what is true is that I agree with Tracy that you should, that if you're going to do this, and I said this to Camden at the time, I said, if you're going to do this, do it right and get the size right now and do it once. And don't come back and try and expand it. Get what you can, let the architects come up with responding to the program. If it maxes it out at 9,000 or 8,500 or 80, whatever, whatever it is, get what you want now. It'll be easier to fundraise for that now, and it'll be much better sell to your community. My experience, and I think there are members still around, well, there are members around from the building committee at the Camden Library, and just anecdotally, I remember saying to them, we made our presentation, we made our concept presentation, and I'd been told what the budget was for it. And the budget was X. And we had our design, we responded to the requirements, we saw what was needed. We came in, and I started off and I said, I have a preliminary construction cost for this building right here for the project. And I said, we're not going to talk about that now. What we're going to talk about is what this thing looks like and whether you guys think it's a good fit, okay? Then we'll get to the cost issue. So we went through all that, and everyone said, oh, well, geez, we really like this. I said, okay, that's fine. Now, what you told me was your budget was, at the time, believe it or not, $2 million. and I said, this cannot be done for $2 million. I said, in order to get this children's room that you want, in order to get the teen part of it, in order to get the a big enough meeting room, et cetera, you're going to have to go further underground, and you're going to have to go, and you're going to have to make it larger, and you're only going to get one bite at the apple. And they deliberated, and they said, no, we're not, we don't think we can raise the other $500,000. And I responded with some force. You haven't raised the money yet. That figure of $2 million is hypothetical right now. And your feasibility individual has told you that it's probably what the community can raise, but that you might be able to raise that 2.5 and get it now. Long story short, I heard for the next 5 years, 6 years, that room underground was too small. It always has people standing out there. It only seats 75 people. You've seen it, some of you, I'm sure, trying to get into the room for programs. And there just isn't, there wasn't enough space. So they've shuffled around space now. Back around, though, what'll be interesting this time around is, as we all know, library technology has changed, and it's changed significantly. So now this discussion of how much stack space do you really need has taken a whole new twist. And Camden's an example, if you go in there, where if you look at the former pictures of what we had, the stacks were much longer. They were one section longer. Now they've removed a section of those stacks, and now there's more space for computers and this and that and the other thing for people to work, and more technology. And of course, we have interlibrary loaning going on. So I would probably spoke too long already, but I would just let these guys come in, let them make their presentations to our committee, and see what they come up with for their view, and then just let it unfold as we go through this, what I call the concept schematic design phase, and see what this thing is headed toward looking at. And we'll be able to tweak it along the line if we want. I mean, there's no problem there. And if at some point you all feel that the budget is totally unmanageable for one reason or another, we'll have plenty of time to discuss that over the next 4 to 6 months. Okay? So that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Thanks for your help.
Thank you.
I was just going to say,
You're very welcome.
he's attended most of our meetings, and he's been a huge amount of help to get us straight on what we were asking for and how we were asking for it. So he continues to be of great help to us.
Okay.
More for me?
Do we have anything more for them?
Jeff was in line, I
Oh,
thought.
that's right. You were going to get in line.
I was in line, and after John's eloquence,
Thank you for reminding me.
I was going to approach it one way, but I'll approach it another way. Tracy dug her heels in and said, absolutely, you know, I don't want to see this number be reduced, if that's a simplification, but essentially what you said. You said, we voted on that number, therefore that number is cast in stone. And I would like to continue my verbiage of letting good people do what they do, in that if it can be proven that the program aspects of the library can be done, and why, look, we lopped off 1,000 feet. I do not, personally, as one of the people that raised their hands and voted for, you know, the number in the site, I do not consider the square footage cast in stone. That is what I felt I was doing when I raised my hand, was to say, yes, the recommendations of that document seem reasonable, and that's what we should go ahead with as a touchstone, not as an absolute. So, you know, with a nod to John's talk, if it's 2,000 more feet, but there's a really, really compelling reason, that's fine. If it's 1,000 less feet or 2,000 less feet and it works, that's fine. So I just wanted to say that the keyword in the next 4 to 5 months should be flexibility and creativity, and not any aspect of it locked in stone.
And if I could build on that,
All right.
because I've got little to no desire to get lost in the weeds of what the architects do. No, thank you. My whole thing was making sure that they understand the way in which you're going to construct this building. Hey, we can't necessarily afford this whole thing right now, but make sure that this wall right here is constructed in an easy to deconstruct, add-on fashion versus build it to never be opened up again. We know in 10 or 15 years, we're gonna pay off some bond stuff, we're gonna have some more money, and when we do expand in the future, we'd like to do it right here. So orient it the best way that you see fit. The big thing is make sure that your construction material and the design that you're doing it allows for an easy expandable option versus we got to tear the whole thing down, we got to reorient the roof, we pitched it wrong, we didn't do this right, it's right in a valley. No, just making sure that they're understanding we have an expansion plan, it'll be in this direction, so build it this way to make it easy for the people 15 years from now when they go through that decision.
Oh, and it's the first thing on the list.
That's what I was gonna say.
Flexibility
Flexibility.
design for expansion. Absolutely.
Great.
That will be understood from the get-go.
And that's where I was going with the whole expansion over time thing. I don't know how it all works out. That was a really good point, that why would you say to expand in 10 years if it's 20-year bond? That's legit. But just, I'm kind of with Jeff. I just don't, that square footage isn't set in stone in my mind.
Ben?
I just want to say something, because I was sort of one of the earlier proponents of the extra list, as it were, because I wanted to make sure that some things that had come up in conversation over the past couple of years, but that weren't mentioned explicitly in the mission statement, were on the table. And I've been quite satisfied in our meeting with the library committee back in, I can't remember the date now, but
September.
no, it was after that. It was after the
January
library-
5th.
Yeah, okay.
January, something like that.
Yeah, come on.
But in that meeting, that the planning committee was well aware of a lot of these items that I was concerned about, and your list today gives me more confidence in that. So I'm perfectly fine to go with the list, and I feel good that all these sort of things that could slip through the cracks won't, basically. So that's where I am with this. I think we've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and I don't think we need to necessarily go through chapter and verse with a list.
Okay.
But
One last thing, if I could. Roger, when he was cutting my hair, said, what did all the people on the Lime Rock Street say to you when you told them you were going to close down the street? And I said, well, anecdotally, it seemed like everyone on Lime Rock Street was okay with it. And he said, well, what about the fire department? Are they going to be able to get to people? And I said, I'll bring up these concerns, and I just wanted to voice it that we have a clear understanding
You can tell,
of the
you can
rest
tell
of the
Roger
folks.
that has already been cleared with both the fire and the police.
Perfect.
I do
Why
have a
you're
neighbor who
here.
does not want the street closed, that has made that.
But do they
expressed
live
that
on
to
Lime
me.
Rock Street?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so, okay.
We
They
don't,
were
we
very
don't,
clear about not wanting that street
we
closed,
have no idea
but,
what's gonna happen
right.
when we turn the architects loose. But I don't wanna put any constraints on them until we have to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
If they gold plate it, we'll say, no, you can't really do that. So, let's let them play for a while and see what they come up with.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
I want to, I'm going to change the agenda order just a little bit here.
Do we insert a break?
I want to do this before we take the break. We have a representative of the Ashwood School here, I believe.
We do.
To do,
so
we're
we-
jumping to item J.
Item
Good,
I
that's
don't want
smart,
to take
that's
a
nice.
break
That's
and,
really
and
nice.
We should
force
have,
her to
we
stay
should have
here.
moved her up. I
I
didn't know she
know.
was here.
Yeah. So, but we have the request, actually here, Jody Spanglet, is that?
She's my boss.
Oh.
Well, she's my director, yeah. I'm Leslie Finlayson, I'm the seventh grade teacher.
Okay. Last year, they came to us and requested that we reduce the fee to $500 for the rental of the space. And they are here again tonight to request the same reduction in the rental price.
Yes, sir.
And it is to us to decide. We are the ones that would waive part or all of the fee.
Just to update my brain, it was supposed to be, how much was it supposed to be if we don't reduce it?
I think it's
It was
$750.
$750, is that right?
Yes.
I think so, yep. Oh, it's different in here.
About 100, I think.
It says
Oh, would you come on up here?
Hey, come join the club. Speaking for myself only, gentlemen.
I
ladies.
lazed around all day and did nothing.
I was up shoveling snow.
Yeah, I was
Hello.
too, but.
Everyone.
Okay.
So we, I think, I don't have Jody's letter in front of me. I should have a copy of it. But I think when we got the contract this year, it came to $13.50 altogether. Thank you so much.
She doesn't say what the contract amount was.
I think it was I think the total contract was $13.50, but we've since asked for a little bit more time, so it will
that's
probably be
what
more
the
like
budget
$1,400, and we're asking for half. We're asking for $700 to be our our budget.
That was last year.
Oh.
Last year, we asked to pay $500, and you were kind enough to let us do that, and we're asking if we can pay $700 this year instead of the total price. So I think we're asking for almost a half
Right.
rate.
So the, and
I'm sorry.
yeah, and pardon my ignorance about this too. So it is more this year. I don't think we increased our rates that much this year, did we?
No.
So are you using it for more time than you were last
We're,
year?
what we're doing, we're not sure why we did this now, but we did a double cast of a Shakespeare play so that all the upper school children could
okay,
have a good
so-
part. So we are rehearsing at least one extra day, maybe 2 extra days. We came in on Monday, and then we're leaving. We're striking on Friday afternoon. So I think we asked for a whole extra day.
Okay,
yeah.
so that's why.
And then we looked at our budget and thought, again, yeah. So
And all of the performances that you have will be free?
they're all free. Yep.
Okay.
There's 4 public performances. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jeff, Ken?
We approved this last year and had a long discussion about it. I don't have a problem with doing it again. So you're looking for a reduction to $700?
To 700, so that we'd pay the Opera House $700
My
to
motion
use.
is wrong then.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
That's why I didn't know what the numbers were. I'm like, none of these numbers match. I
We'd
don't
love to
know.
have it for 500, but that doesn't seem fair. So.
I'm gonna make a motion and then we can discuss it. I'll move to approve the request from Ashward Waldorf School for a reduced rate to rent the Rockport Opera House of $700 in recognition of their dedication for using the Opera House for their events.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and we can now have discussion. Do we have any discussion?
We had a long discussion last year, and I don't know that the parameters, except for the fact that they're using it a little bit more, and the numbers are a little bit higher. I don't know that the parameters are that dramatically different.
Is there any conflict? Is anyone else trying to use it that would pay full price?
No, the next thing in is the caucus, I think.
No,
But-
it's gonna be a kitchen show next Friday, and then eventually
A what?
a kitchen show.
And I don't know about that?
Oh.
But that's not till next Friday.
So,
You're gonna have to convince me really hard to not reduce it.
oh,
for
I don't,
them.
I don't want to convince you not to reduce it, but I do have to splash a little bit of water on this.
Okay.
Ultimately, I'm gonna raise my hand.
He did it last year too. He
Yeah.
splashed water.
Well, it's because he said he wants the
He's
the
our-
opera house.
Oh, was I a curmudgeon last year?
You were, yeah.
Oh, I thought,
You guys, the rest of the board wanted to just let us
made an
not pay
impression.
anything,
Oh, okay,
and you
all
said
right.
that would be a bad precedent.
well,
Throw your water.
consistency is a,
I'm ready. I'm ready
hobgoblin
for
of-
you.
So we can look at it a couple different ways. Well, first of all, we have the most friendly opera house from a price standpoint, from a staff standpoint, from everything. We're incredibly flexible in all that. We want to continue to do that, no question at all. We want to continue to support all of the wonderful educational energy around. We don't necessarily want to continue to, to give discounts to people when basically the first one would be, well, we understand your situation, here we are, we'll do it this year. That's sort of not a built-in, and I know there's no attitude issue from the school at all. They're saying, oh gosh, we turned around and there it was. So I'm not worried about that. And maybe that's the total extent of my splashing cold water on it. Yes, we should do it from a support basis. We should do it from a number of things. This is an expensive building, and it's a building that we've just poured a lot of money into to bring in more stuff, more people. So wouldn't it be super if somebody in your community said, oh, we could do a corporate retreat here and rent this room out or something like that. But we can continue to be generous. We want to do it with all of our eyes open.
That wasn't
Was
very
that- was
cold.
that- was that
That
bad?
wasn't very cold.
Okay.
Very nice.
Tepid almost.
Okay. Other comments? The motion has been made and seconded.
My concern is for you guys in the long run, if comes the day that we have to say, no, we can't reduce that, we're putting you in a bind as well. So, maybe this is something we need to have, for lack of a better term, a policy on, or some more thought on as to who we would consider. I know that we've talked about this with the Pinquists having their dance or whatever, or,
Help people home,
to raise money for Pinquist and things like that. So we've definitely had individual events that we haven't had any problem reducing their rate, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, I'm totally with Jeff there, but you guys have a need to do this on a regular basis, on a year-to-year basis of a big event, and we need to figure out how we can be good neighbors to your school as well, as to what they can expect next year and what they should budget for next year. So, maybe we do need to have a more in-depth conversation, because I think it's a wonderful thing to have Shakespeare presented by kids that's free to the public. I find that that's a really important public thing to do. And we haven't had a lot of that in the past, so we're lucky to have it this year. But I do think that for a long-term kind of a thing, we need to think about how we want to deal with that, so they can know what they can depend upon us for. And so at some point, Jeff can make sure that people can come in and just spend thousands of dollars to rent this place on a daily basis. And we'll know that we can have a balance between those people and local schools that have a need to use a facility that they can't get in any other way. So I think there's a bigger conversation to have in the long run for both their sake and our sake.
Okay.
make one final comment, and that's that it's nice that you increased your budget so you're able to pay the town a little bit more this year, and perhaps that's something that, if you can continue to do that in each subsequent year, that helps us to say yes to you as well.
Yeah, last year we did the Pirates of Penzance, and we exceeded what we hoped to bring in at the box office, so we do have a larger, and then if this is a good show, then hopefully we can do it again too. But I think also, just to say, I think in the future, we're gonna try to ask you well ahead of this date. That's my big regret, is that we didn't come to you long before this, but we're teachers, we're disorganized, I guess. We're theater people pretending to be teachers, so.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to grant the reduction?
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
now I'm gonna say we'll take a little break, okay? It's gonna be a 2.5-minute break.
2.5?
2.5? Well, because I know it'll be at least 7, because if I say 5, it's 15.
We can do anything in 2.5 minutes. Yes, yeah.
Okay, I gotta get back. Where was I? Uh-oh. I lost them. Yes.
I have a proposal.
What?
I have a proposal that I'm thinking about doing.
Okay.
Will make you very happy. Boston Post King.
Yes.
I'm in touch with an individual.
Oh.
And what I was thinking, we can secretly plan to have it at the beginning of our Elder's Night.
That would be wonderful.
I'm getting information on the individual.
Okay.
He's like 100, and he does have 2 caretakers.
Oh.
Are the people that take care of his and his daughter. And I'm
Yep.
gonna call her tomorrow, but I want to talk to her. She sent me something.
That would be wonderful.
I know it
Yeah, Friday night, yeah.
Yeah. We're not gonna tell anybody. We'll know, we'll do a certificate, we'll have his pin, and when we die, we'll do something. And we did, well, we did a cake, and we did flowers. So give it a little
Well, yeah, but
I
we're,
have a little pin,
yeah, that's definitely,
and I'm gonna do a nice certificate in a nice frame.
yes.
Which I did for work.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, the thing is, with the Elders Night, it's not like we're gonna make the presentation. Oh, now let's break for 15 minutes, go downstairs and have the cake, and then come back and usually do it.
everything's gonna be upstairs.
Okay.
We're gonna have all the food upstairs and everything.
Oh.
Nobody will know it, so we can have his family come in. He's not gonna know if he's kind of
Okay.
surprised. And we'll tell him he's part of the elders or something.
Mm-hmm.
No? Usually it goes to about that time of year.
Oh,
But I'll work with his family.
okay. Sounds fine. And have a cake, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Well, there's gonna be other food.
Oh, okay.
There's gonna be plenty of.
But definitely the certificate and the pin, and bring the cane, yeah. Just don't let them walk out with it.
But I don't wanna take it.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. It's always something that it's just the two of us are supposed to do, until it's announced, yeah.
And I know you've been wanting this for a long time, so it's really hard to move on from this time.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. And that means we get to engrave the plaque over at the town office again.
Yes.
Okay.
We will, and, I'll get all this information and he was
Oh. Oh, Grant?
No,
This,
not Granville, but his last name is Granville. Morris Granville.
oh, okay.
Morris Granville.
All right.
Lives down on Lives down that way.
Oh,
He's a
okay.
naughty person.
Yeah.
He's down a lot.
Okay, so we've got 1.3 mil.
Okay.
But I wanna
That we're investing in stuff. Not all of it is accessible.
Yes.
Et cetera, et cetera. So, at the end of the year, we make $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get
Where's
all
that $50,000 go? And what do we do with it?
Gets
If
reinvested.
she,
It
if she
gets
wants to,
reinvested,
I think it'd be
but
better
It's
for
not
you,
50.
you know,
Where do
you've
we
already got the
take money
contact
and
going.
give it to the state for public employee retirement stuff? Is that like a budgeted item based
Yeah,
on
that's a
the
whole nother
amount,
subject.
like the amount of employees that we have?
How many are in Maine State Retirement?
Okay.
See, we offer both. We offer both Maine State Retirement or the typical 401k.
Okay.
So it depends on which system you're into. And things are changing right now because a lot of the people who recently
Okay,
retired were
Rick.
in Maine State, and a lot of the
Ken.
new people are not.
So that's how like California went bankrupt and had to
Okay.
do their weird stuff with their public employees.
Because they didn't have their
retirement
act
fund.
together. They
And
weren't
I
putting
was trying to
enough
figure
in.
that out because I was like, it's like a Stephen Beveridge.
Wow, we've lost everybody.
When like Steve retires, who pays him? Is it the town or the state? I figured it was the state.
Well, the town
Give
never
one to Linda,
does
too.
for retirement.
Okay,
It's either
we
state or
ready to go
401k.
again?
But we give the state money every year to help pay for that retirement?
For the Maine State Retirement, that's why I mean, we have fewer and fewer people that are part of that. So what we have to put in is
No.
different.
Okay, we ready?
And they've
Same bundle
changed
of
the
money.
Where are we now on the
The
agenda?
individual
Back
gets
to
to
the
say, no, put it
H,
in my
point H.
401k or
Set
put
date
it
for
into my
workshop.
Main State retirement.
Okay.
They get the
Going-
choice and we only just, yeah.
We just.
Give us a thumbs up when
it's
the
like a
sound's there.
Voucher system.
Okay.
No.
We'll
You figure
get
it
back together here.
Sorry.
We've effectively dropped the point G from this, and we now move to item H. I want to set a date to discuss the comprehensive plan. Remember last month, Jamie came in and gave us the
2019
information
sounds
about what we needed to do or could do and how to proceed on that. I think it would be a good idea for us to set a date to actually take a look and set our direction for it, and I'm recommending.
July 25th.
What's the matter with that?
No, I think that's great. July is a good time to think
Right,
about
yeah,
it.
right.
Because I was thinking, if you put this in March, I'm leaving. We're meeting like every day in March already.
Would that be a promise? No, I wanted to get it on the calendar, you know, because that would be under the quote,
That
next
works for me.
board.
Apply for you.
Yeah, I'm the only one, yes.
So,
Yeah, we're stuck with you for a while. Owen.
Me? No,
Owen,
you're
Owen.
not stuck with me at all.
stuck with me.
come on, let's get back to this point.
We're enjoying
I'm suggesting that we do it on July 25th. Is there anybody have an issue with that? Oh. No, that's before the start of the,
Yeah,
Just
July,
barely.
just look at that, July 29th to August
Just
2nd.
barely.
yeah, okay. I looked at Linda, and Linda's looking at me, what? You can't do it right in the middle of the 125th? No, okay.
I mean, I think it's fine to set it now. I think
Yeah.
there's an equal chance that when that time rolls around, we'll have to change it anyway, but that's good to get it
At
on
least we
the
got it on
calendar.
the
Hey,
calendar.
Bill, did you check and see if that conflicts with my grad school? Because my memory is not good enough, but I sent all the dates to you. I figured you blocked them out. I'm fine with the date, totally cool with it. I just don't know if I'm in Cleveland that week or not.
Let me take a quick look. July
What date is it?
25th. I don't have you there.
Perfect, because I
Not
sent you
that
all the
week.
dates, so that'll be awesome.
Yep. I don't have you for anything in July.
Perfect.
You get July off?
Awesome. No, not really, but
Probably not.
awesome.
Well, off of that.
You may want to double check,
I will.
because I got you middle of August, the
And as Ken
14th to the
said,
20th.
There's equally a good chance that
Yeah.
stuff will
So-
happen.
It's just so far away then.
Right.
Yep. Okay. The next item, we have the provider agency list that we do every year. And we have been presented with the list. There's only 7 names this year. Apparently, Red Cross did not submit a request to have their name listed. Last year, we just said, let's put them all on.
Well, I think I ask the question every year, how much money actually comes in from doing it this way? And it seems to me that it's minimal.
Yeah.
And I had hoped, and it didn't happen this year, to use the ones that we had approved and have an event with the holiday on the harbor when people are looking at end-of-year giving to perhaps boost the numbers up for these organizations a little bit. So it's, you know, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with all the organizations. I just wonder whether this effort is worth the time that we go through for it.
I
Well-
second Ken's thought process.
It's certainly not, it's certainly not worth it for the agencies, you know, in that they're getting minimal return that is tagged as, you know, through the town of Rockport, however it is. I don't disagree with Leonard that we are out of step with the surrounding communities in maintaining this position, which came on the last, trying to think how many terms I've been on, but anyway, when I was a selectman previously, and we had a board that, who's at an economic conditions that were different from when they are now. And I would like to revisit the whole policy. This became a compromise situation, position, a compromise process when there was a board that had a majority of its members saying, absolutely not, we will not spend $1 of taxpayer money on provider agencies. And I think we can do better. You know, I think it'll, if we do get back to a position of doing this, I think it's reasonable that it takes some time in terms of bouncing it off of citizens and what have you. But I think we should be. And I think that, that's in essence of community. These many, not all of them, but many of these agencies that used to come to us for a cut of Rockport's taxpayers' money. Many of them supplement and serve our community and our citizens in a way that we are either unable to or unwilling to or whatever. So I'd just like to start the process of changing this back around.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
I was on the budget committee when it happened, and I was horrified by that.
Was it a recession, a great recession thing? We were
No,
just
it
so
was people.
freaked out.
There were
No,
a couple
it was
people that
people.
felt that the town should not be making charitable donations, that it should be up to the residents of the town. If they want to give the money, let them give the money. We shouldn't be in a position of taxing them to give their money away.
And though I kind of agree with that general concept, I would be curious. It'd be ridiculously hard to understand, but I'd be curious to find out if I heard 16,000 is what we used to give to all of them put together. We take like 16,000 divided by 7
Well,
or
no,
whatever.
they would come to us, there's a form
Yeah.
that was
They made a
very
request,
convoluted,
yeah.
and they would request an amount, and they would always have some sort of criteria that they based it on. Either, this is how many people we serve, and this is how many are from Rockport, and we would like this amount of money. I mean, we asked them for that kind of
Actually, I
information.
can forward you the form.
And they used to come and sit here until 1 o'clock in the freaking morning and ask for $2,000.
It was the
And
budget committee. They'd ask the budget committee.
Oh, I was on the budget committee. It wasn't the select board. And here were people who were running these small or sometimes larger nonprofits that would sit here literally for 5 hours to get their half an hour or 20 minutes to explain what they did for our community and why it was important. And I just thought it was ridiculous that we would cut that off from, obviously, people who do things that we don't do.
And worst case scenario, we reverse this whole thing. We have it a line item in the budget. Then come
Well,
town
it
hall,
was. It always
they
was.
can
Yeah.
they can go and reject it if they
It
want
was,
to.
it was always a line item.
It was an article in the warrant.
And it
And would they
passed.
bring it up during town
Nope.
meeting?
Nope, it
They
never.
did it in the budget.
Yeah, they
committee
did. They
cycle.
cut it. They just cut it and it just disappeared. Sorry, you don't get anything.
And I think that the 16 figure you have, the only smart political thing I've ever done in my life was to be able to broker in the last year that we did it. I sort of looked to one side and looked to the other, and I said, 16,000, and it was painful for this person and painful for that person, but it worked.
But we got them
it used to be more, if I remember
27,
correctly,
I think,
it used to
30.
be significantly more. Like at one point in
one
the low
point was-
40s. Does that?
40s or 50s,
Really?
I think.
don't
Yeah.
remember it being that high.
That was
But
years
but in any
before-
event,
years before.
It used to be a number more than that, let's put it
I'd
that
say
way.
high
Well, been a
20s.
higher percentage. It
High
was a percentage.
20s,
Right.
maybe.
Well, I have to
Okay,
say
doesn't
too,
matter.
Because I was one of the ones that actually sat out in the audience representing an organization asking for money in a couple of different years. And the absolute amount of money that's received by the organizations is not a very big part of their budgets either. But it was an opportunity for the organizations to tell the townspeople what they do. And so that had a lot of value too. In fact, perhaps even more value to the organization than the actual money did.
Right.
But I think it would be good to get back to that. It's not a break the budget amount of money by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it would send a signal to the organizations that the town does appreciate the work that they do for our residents.
I also think that when we do things like Holiday on the Harbor, like the 125th celebration, that we should always reach out to these groups first and say, please come, tell us what you...
Set up a table.
Or-
No, these groups of saying, come, set up a table, show people what you do,
Exactly.
and ask for money, or have a bake sale, or whatever it is that you do.
That's what I really wanted to do with Holiday on the Harbor
Right,
last
which
year. and it
I
just-
have to be
it
honest
didn't
though,
work.
Holiday on the Harbor is not a good time to ask people to come stand outside and explain what they do.
Well, my thought was it would be inside someplace. It'd be a place to come and warm up and write a check.
And it works with that end of the year charitable giving that you were
Okay.
talking about too.
All right, yep. Well,
So, we
Now-
should talk about this.
okay, we can talk about this more next month. Because we have probably a couple of different directions we could go.
Do we want to, these people filled out a form for this year. Mm-hmm. Do we want to approve this as a baseline thing to work up from at this point? Or I guess I might ask, when would we, if we do it the same way we've done it previous years, when would this have to be done in order to get the stuff on?
Next February.
No,
Oh,
wait.
They were already gone to the, soon go to the budget committee to be on there.
So,
Good.
budget committee accepts it, we accept it, and then it goes out on the tax bill next.
no, 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 no.
Even gone on the tax bill.
The normal way, it was
Right.
the applications come in the
Right,
first of
right.
February. Sometime during February, the budget committee would meet until, dark 30.
No, what I'm trying to say
And, yeah,
is do we need to approve these organizations who've already filled out a form and we ask
to
them
go
to fill
on
out
the
a form?
tax bill.
For status quo.
Status,
Right.
right,
The
for status
suggested
quo, we
motion.
can change it later. That's what I'm asking.
Right, and
not
I
necessarily-
agree, we
it's-
should approve this and then talk about the rest of it at whatever meeting we wanna talk about it, because we can't make
Okay,
that
that's what I-
change.
yeah,
I mean, are we thinking about making that change for this coming budget, that?
That'd be tough. because
Right,
of
that's what
the-
I'm saying,
Yeah.
so if it's too late for the budget that we're working on right this very moment, then we've got plenty of months to come back and talk about this again.
And this wording I'm cool with, cause it just says, put it as an insert in their
Yeah.
taxes. Yeah,
Right,
so
which
this-
is what
yeah.
what it is right at the moment,
Well,
so,
I'll make the motion then. I move to approve the list as presented of the provider agencies to be included on the 2016 tax bill as an insert.
second.
Moved and seconded.
With
Further discussion?
Again, the idea that we'll flesh this out a little bit more about a change for subsequent years.
All right.
And just, can I say one more thing? When we get this again, whether or not, if we do it the other way next year, then it's a whole other subject. But if we do this again, it would be nice to have a little more information about these things. If we don't know, I know where Mary Spring is. I know what Camden District Nursing does, but I would hope that they have more than their 5 lines that maybe I
Well, the
would like
whole
to know.
application is in the town office.
So we
And
would need to.
it's the provider agency
So it's the
application
old
form.
application form?
Well, the one that we revised just in time for them to kill it?
Right, to make it easier to use?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And you and I both also worked on it too.
That's why I said there's like so much of it
Okay.
stuck in my head.
The motion is on the floor. No further discussion? All in favor? These will go on the tax bill, and we will have a discussion at a later time. This is something that, now we're on item K.
Okay.
Okay. Rick noticed that the MMA has a technology conference coming up in May 5th. And he was suggesting that maybe it would be a good idea for us to approve the technology, the ad hoc technology committee members, 1, 2, or all, or something like that, attending if they would. Typically, a conference like this, the member towns pay $50 or $75. It's, it's like going to the annual convention. It's, a nominal amount effectively.
He'll be able to come up with that through Clever Rick.
I looked it up on the MMA's website last week, and they didn't have the agendas and the costs, the registration fee published.
And I don't even think it's that much money.
I thought it was like $35 when you go to a one-day thing.
Oh, okay, that may be.
And I would say, I would lean towards approving it. I would also want them to determine how useful they think it will be to them. It may not be something that the whole group needs to go to.
Yeah.
My guess is that you may get one or two of them will be, have the time to go.
Right, I mean, I would hope they would have
back,
at least a representative, but they need to also evaluate it once the schedule comes out as
Yes.
to how useful it will be to
Yeah, if they
them.
think it won't be useful at all, then don't go.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll move to approve the attendance of the Ad hoc Technology Committee or representatives of the Ad hoc Technology Committee to the MMA Technology Conference on May 5th.
Second.
Moved and second, further discussion? No?
Just as long as we're all cool with where the money will come from. I just sometimes voting on things I don't know a dollar amount on. I'm assured that it's going to be low. Okay, it's $1 million, but yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay. All in favor then, that is also unanimous. I would now entertain a motion to go in as wastewater.
I move to leave as select board members and go into wastewater commissioners.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call for the vote. All in favor? We can put on our wastewater commissioner's hat. And we have not received the,
We didn't get the,
so that has to be tabled. I'd entertain a motion to table.
move to table the December 2015 wastewater user debt fees.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay. We also have two an abatement request and an equivalent user change request. Scott has, I assume it was Scott.
Yes.
Has provided us a memo indicating what the changes are.
Which one are you looking at? The abatement?
Okay,
or the-
first one is Susan Durkee, the abatement, 88 Main Street.
I mean, I think my description is, I hope is pretty clear. It was a mistake made, and it has gone on since 2008. What Scott is recommending is basically from the time that she came in and notified us, it was a question of she changed it in one place, but it didn't get picked up in another place. So that's basically 3 years, and it should have gotten picked up. And so the actual, who's responsible for it is, who knows? But it just does make sense. They haven't had that unit as a 4-unit building since 2008. So abating the charges for 3 years seemed to make sense. They were happy with that. It all started because the owner's husband came to me and said, "Why is our sewer bill so high?" And it turns out that, we were charging them for a 4-unit building when they were now a single-family home. My first response was, is it possible you have a leak you don't know about? And they said, no, it's been like this for years.
I would note that his use permit with the change of use is dated incorrectly. 11/28/2016.
Well, that's when Scott made him change it. They had to fill out another.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah,
to
but-
fill out a.
11/28/2016 is.
The end of this
is
year.
The end of this year. It
It's
has
to
to
be
be.
128.
128.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know whether it was 11/28/2015 or, okay,
I'm thinking it's 128.
128.
okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, well, I'm gonna move to approve the sewer abatement for Susan Durkee at 88 Main Street for the past 3 years as recommended by the local plumbing inspector, Scott Bickford.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
So
Wait.
Oh,
we're abating, we're changing from the 100 and whatever to 48 for the last 3 years.
Right.
That's it. This problem's been going on for longer than
yes,
that, but we're
but
doing
we
3
only
years.
can do 3 years.
Okay.
That's the debt service fee, not the usage charges.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So debt service. Oh, I gotcha.
End of discussion?
End it.
All in favor? That's unanimous. We also have a request for an equivalent user change, which is sort of like what we already did. But this is for a Mary Bray Nichols. That name is familiar. At 16 Spruce Street.
And Scott said basically, it used to be that he would do that internally, but that's done by you now.
Well, that's still in flux, actually. He's got some issues with the sewer ordinance, and some are, we're working on that.
Okay.
He put in a backhanded
Yeah.
comment there about, in hopes of the draft of corrections I had submitted. Well, it's in the hands of the ORC, and it's gonna get worked on, but, some of that is, at any rate,
Yeah.
will go on.
Yep.
Okay.
So I move to approve the addition of a second user for Mary Brain Nichols at 16 Spruce Street due to the addition of an apartment.
Second.
Further discussion? I heard Jeff in here.
Well, I mean, is there any consideration that this is a true, mother-in-law kind of apartment, in that these are family members? I don't know if that changes anything, but her son built the house, and he lives in the second unit when he's in town from Idaho. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
But they could rent it out, so
Yes,
right.
it's still 2 units. We still have to charge them as if it was
And
2
they
units.
requested the second address, so to make it a second unit.
16A. Yep.
So, yeah, you get a second address, you have a second dwelling unit.
Yep. Further discussion? All in favor? That is passed.
Can I just, because we're on the topic, and I apologize, it seems like you really want to get out of here. With the last one we did with Susan Durkee, how does the money shell game go with that? Do we just stop charging her for additional ones until she's recouped what they paid in the past, or do we cut them a check for what the difference was, and then
Check.
Yeah,
Cut them a check, yeah.
in this case, we will cut a check.
cut them a check, and they'll be paying monthly from then on, but whatever the difference was for the last 3 years, we cut them a check from the town for that amount.
Well,
And we have,
from the wastewater account,
That
not
was the
from the
question.
town, from the wastewater account.
Right.
great, and that
Because we are
mechanism's
wastewater
set in
commissioners.
place, the
Yeah.
money's there, it's
See,
not
what it was
complicated.
We are rebating the equivalent user fees that were charged inaccurately. We're not rebating any of the sewer usage that
Right.
they did. You
Yep.
know, whatever went down got charged, billed, there's no question about that. It's just, we were charging them for 4 equivalent users at $43 or something a piece, and we should only have been charging for 1.
Yep.
So those other 3 get cut a check, and it comes out of the wastewater funds.
Perfect.
And
I
the
would just-
amounts are probably different for the various years
Yeah,
too, because the
could be.
equivalent user fee changed through that
Okay.
period.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something we approve every year, so. Okay, any more on wastewater? Can I have a motion to adjourn from
Move
wastewater?
to adjourn as wastewater commissioners and go back into session as select board. Woo-hoo.
Second.
Is moved and seconded, all in favor? We are back in as this, and we can go to liaison reports. As we're going in here, I want to make the, situation here known. Right now, neither Ken nor Jeff can be here on March 8th. Ken is out of town, Jeff has a work engagement that they decided they wanted to do it on.
I'm out of town, basically.
Yeah, you're out of town in Portland. That's on the 8th. The 9th, only Ken will be missing. Now, Ken is gone that whole week, and as Ken's related to me, he is going to be unable probably even to Skype in.
In a different time zone.
In different time zone. Now, the beauty is that we are streaming this to the internet, so.
With,
at-
now, with a good minute's delay, by the way, so any comments.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm saying we're streaming it so that they can watch it at
Well,
their
it-
convenience.
Yeah, it's being archived.
Yeah, archived on it, all right.
Well, what I plan to do as far as the budget is concerned is I'll have the budget and then I'll go through it like I usually do, and then I will send an email to the whole board and to the whole budget committee with any issues that I mean, usually I go through it with a red pen, and then when the items come up, I ask a question or something like that, and I will try to get something out to everybody so that my concerns, and very rarely do I come up with something that nobody else finds either. Usually it's something that somebody else saw it too or something, but.
Yeah. Now, I would point out that according to the published schedule, the draft budget will be presented to us on Thursday, the 3rd. Second? Third. Third. So, there is not a lot of time gap there.
You're not gonna have a lot of time to review it between,
Right.
between the 3rd and the 8th.
But that's typical what we have anyway.
Should I be, do we come and pick those up? I just want to make sure I'm not dropping the ball once it comes to March. When it comes in on the 3rd, I should come into the town office, pick it up.
Got an email saying
Yeah,
it's
we
ready.
usually get an
They'll send
email
an email.
saying
Okay,
it's
cool.
ready.
So I wanted to raise that, because if somebody else is an inkling, I gotta look at the three of us, have an inkling that they're not gonna be here on the 8th. Now, it's not a meeting, it's a workshop, so we don't have to have a quorum present, because we're not gonna be taking any votes.
Are we televising that or not?
Yes.
Yeah, we always do.
Yeah, our sessions we televise. We're gonna hold them right in here,
And, but our workshops, we do televise, yeah.
ours,
Okay.
yes, for the budget.
And
The budget committee doesn't want theirs.
have we beat up the budget committee recently?
I beat them up last year, that was the same response as the year before.
Same chair?
Yep. And I think they have the same chair again this year, Jan. They discuss it, and they decide they don't want to have it televised, their discussions.
Okay, and what's their reasoning again?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
They are elected on their own,
Right.
just like the library committee.
Consensus votes,
So,
just the one.
all right,
So we start at 5 o'clock?
And we go
and
into
we
7
go
just to vote.
okay. Now,
Doo-dah.
going on to liaison reports, next month, we have the Conservation Commission, and we have the group from the middle school coming in. I got a letter from them. It was addressed to me, and they said they thanked me for being able to present to the Camden Select Board. And that, we would like to invite a member of the Camden Select Board to serve on this committee. I'm planning to attend your board meeting on Tuesday, January 19th. And it was addressed to William Chapman, care of Rick Bates, P.O. Box 10, Camden, Maine.
Can I say not me? I'm just saying.
Well, this is something, I'm just letting you know that they're gonna ask, for somebody to sit on their planning board to develop their new next middle school.
What's the time?
I have no idea. They're gonna tell us next month.
I feel like I've got a little bit of wiggle room because of Parks, but then Parks picks back up.
This is gonna go.
Their winter months are over, and all of a sudden my
This
liaison.
is gonna be a long-term kind of
This is
thing.
gonna be a long-term kind of thing.
You have
Because,
kids coming up to the middle school.
And I'm very much interested in it. It's just purely a, do I have enough
ask that
time?
question next month.
I'm spread kind of thin how it is. I'd love to do it.
Well, ask that question next month.
Oh, and you and I can duke it out in the back see who runs fastest.
Okay.
Way or towards?
Oh, no, but,
And I'll remind you, we have a lot of things here to sign tonight. There was a lot of birthdays, and because we had the executive session, we didn't do the birthday cards ahead of time. Who wants to go first? Liaison report.
We should talk about Midco Solid Waste.
Yeah. I love
I
trash.
had it down here.
I know.
It's on our calendar.
I'm kind of lobbing it off to you, but we've got meetings coming up.
Yeah.
and there's big decisions to make, and
Mm-hmm.
this has to go on the ballot in June.
Yes.
So we're gonna have to
We
put it
have
on the
meet,
ballot in June.
they have already decided on having, or,
what date
or
is
they've,
that?
they've glommed on to
Two of
two
them,
nights.
Looks like, yeah.
March 3rd
Yeah,
and March 10th.
10th.
Yeah.
And then March the 23rd, it says.
And then March the
something, too.
23rd, that would be a regular meeting.
That's the regular meeting.
That's the
Okay.
regular meeting. Whether these two will supersede it or not, or they'll still,
So, just FYI, there are a series of meetings, and I haven't gone to any of them yet, by many parties to this PERC, Fiber Right, or / MRC, are having meetings all over the state. There have been some here locally. I have not gotten around to going to them. But I believe, Rick we have that document in our hands, don't we, Rick?
Which one?
The MRC Fiber Right document.
Yes,
So we have gotten to that point.
yay thick.
Right, that's what Jim had said.
oh yeah, the three
So,
contracts.
We have the contract in our hands. We will be asked to put it on the ballot, and then people will be allowed to vote whether or not they agree with this decision. And there's lots of good information out there, and there's lots of not so good information out there.
Well, we did receive that report last month from the CB and Mahar study of what the options are.
Oh, that's true, so,
And that was reported in the papers and everything, and those documents are available, at least, I think we can get them at town office, right? The
Were they
report
just
from
on-
CB and Mahar listing the 8 or 9 options.
I believe it's on the
Midco
Midco
Solid
Solid
Waste.
Waste website. I think the decision was instead of having
so.
to
Yes.
drive people to that
Basically,
site.
Midco Solid Waste paid an engineering firm to look at all of the options. That included landfills, that included everything that we could potentially realistically look into here in the state of Maine where we are. And they gave us all the options and talked about why they would work or wouldn't work, how much they would cost, and they actually have a nice table of how much things supposedly will cost with little asterisks next to things that are just, we don't have any way of knowing. But, and some of them are good for longer rather than shorter periods of time. Some of the landfills, especially some of the ones that are closer, could give us a really good price. But it'll be a first come, first serve kind of thing, so it'll depend upon who jumps off of the wagon and
And-
goes for something like that.
And they're also trying, a couple of those are trying to close their landfill.
So it would be a shorter term
Yeah.
thing. And then we do have the situation in Augusta with tipping fees into landfills that has been an issue in the past. So just landfilling things has many negatives. But there's a lovely report that's actually, if you just go to the big chart that's, I think, at the end, there's a lot of good information there that gives you kind of at a glance, and then you can read back through because they go over each site and say what they found and who they talked to.
It's a very, very complex, I have a meeting, yet another meeting tomorrow about it. It's a very complex problem and one that's way too complex to solve in liaison
Yeah.
report setting.
It was funny. I dove in when I was campaigning for the State House. I dove right into it because I love trash, and and I realized the more I learned about it, the more confused I got about what is going on.
It's very complicated.
Well, and realistically, there's a lot of information out there that doesn't have a lot of factual support to it.
We love those, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to tell which one is which.
But needless to say,
Are they color coded?
No.
it will get back to you. There will be a time, that's what these meetings are, on the 10th and the 3rd and the 10th of March are to try and distill this information down and get select boards up to speed on this stuff, because it is very complicated and very convoluted and difficult to understand.
I do have one question. Is the time 6 PM or 7 PM?
I don't think we've nailed that down.
Okay.
I just stuck that on the calendar just so we had a space holder, so we didn't plug it in with something else.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, Ken, you wanna go through yours?
Ordinance review. And I didn't say anything during Mr. Gibbons' presentation, but I can make a couple of comments now. Ordinance review has been working on.
Remember, we're still live.
No, that's okay. This is the appropriate time to make the comments. It's been working on the downtown district. We've got that pretty well wrapped up, I think, for this year, which was basically just to correct the tables where they didn't agree and make a few changes. We didn't really make any substantive changes, but the committee does want to look at the whole downtown area again. And one of the things that I'm suggesting that the committee do is that they've got to get some stuff done in time to get things on the ballot. I've suggested to the committee, and I think I have agreement, that once that's done, that the committee continue to meet while we have all this stuff fresh in our minds and having the discussion and go on. And that may require this board to perhaps provide a supplemental work plan for the ORC to continue on some of these things beyond what their responsibilities are for getting things on the ballot. But if we wait to reintroduce it until next November again, then everybody's forgotten about it, and the discussion has to start all over, and it takes a lot more time, so.
So you're saying get a head start in the next year after they
Exactly, is
file
to
this
be
section?
able to resolve some of this stuff, and there were many times when we were going through these things that people said, well, this shouldn't be that way. Well, that's not what's on the work plan for this year. Let's get this year's work plan done, then we can have a broader discussion about the whole downtown area and
Okay.
the 913 district and things like that, and possibly creating a new zoning district and things like that. And I bring that up in terms of Mr. Gibbons tonight, because we could potentially, if we chose to, put this road issue on for that supplemental, so it wouldn't be on the ballot for this year. Despite his comments, he says it's a very simple change. There are no very simple changes when it comes to ordinance reviews.
Yeah, right. I was
There's
thinking
gonna be
that too.
differences of opinion among the committee, and I think at this point, the committee is gonna get their work done, but not with a lot of extra time to spare. They started on the private way thing this last time, we looked at that, and I think we've got that resolved, and we're moving on with that. So, at any rate, I think, we may wanna think about a little bit of a supplemental plan to let them work on some things while they still have the discussion there. And if we want to put that road issue on there, that's something we could talk about. I know I did a couple of years ago when John Duke first brought this issue up about Hawthorne, floated the idea of amending the road ordinance to allow roads that connect to accepted roads to have a different acceptance standard, as opposed to, a dead-end street with a cul-de-sac or something like that. And that didn't fly, but at any rate, maybe we want to revisit that. So, anyway, that's ordinance review. Cemetery committee met, Bill was there. We had a presentation on columbariums, which is a way to basically to get more availability for cremated remains to be entered into Seaview Cemetery. It's an above-ground, I don't know, for lack of a better term, it looks like a bank of post office boxes, if you will, except they're a little bit bigger. But it's
That was pretty elegant.
but they're actually very nice looking, and if it's done with an idea of, making like a little mini park within the cemetery where there might be some benches and a nice place to sit, and the guy said, gee, you could even have a marble lectern there or whatever, so people could have a graveside service there or something like that. The cost of that is going to be fairly significant, probably, $80,000 to $100,000, something like that, for something that will hold like 96. I don't have the numbers right. I don't have them right in front of me, but
You're in the
it is a memory,
ballpark.
But it's something like that. It's about, I think, ranged anywhere from $400 to $800 per depository location.
I think they had one down around 300.
Yeah, the question was, and we got a presentation on some that were made in China and shipped over here, and some that were made in Maine. And obviously, the ones that are made in Maine or New England are more expensive. But there's some sentiment, I think, among some members of the committee anyway, that they would rather have the made in Maine thing and a lifetime warranty that perhaps has a little more teeth in it, things like that.
The ones that were made in Maine typically were with what, Vermont or New Hampshire marble?
Yeah, or granite. Yeah,
Granite, granite.
So, but at any rate, I think that's something that we're going to have to look at. And one of the things that came up during the discussion is we had these gentlemen from the monument company that came, and in addition, one of the guys who worked for the monument company was also on his cemetery committee in Monmouth. And he brought up the point, he asked what we were charging for our cemetery plots, and when he was told, he said, we're way undercharging for what other towns do for burial plots. He said, you know, you're tying up a lot of real estate for not very much money.
Was that just in general, or as it relates to the view and the scenery around our cemetery? Just in general? Nothing about the fact that it overlooks the ocean.
No,
It's
that
beautiful.
doesn't even
Well, then
play
it
into
should be even more
It should
expensive.
be even more.
Yeah, but at any rate, he said that our rates are way too low. So that's something, because we set the rates, and it's something that we may want to look at. I assume that the cemetery committee may review that at
Are
some
we gonna
point.
get a
Well,
recommendation
But
from
he
them?
only looked at the Seaview Cemetery.
Right.
He didn't see the
No, but
other
I-
three that
He was
we've got.
talking just about the acreage, though.
Yeah.
Just about
Right,
Right,
but
yeah.
that means that the other cemetery should be at least as much as what he's talking about, and Seaview should be more.
Right, right.
I'm just being honest, that it's,
Yeah, it's a nicer venue, but he wasn't commenting, I don't believe, Linda was there and Bill was there, maybe you didn't learn. I thought he was making the comment purely on the fact that you're giving him a plot this big, and no matter where it is, you're not charging anywhere near
Yeah.
enough money for it. So we need to revisit those rates at some point, and I assume that the cemetery committee will convene a meeting sometime soon, and that may be on the agenda to look at the rates, to at least start ramping them up to what they should be. Ambulance review, Rick mentioned in his report, things seem to be going well, they seem to be on a firmer financial footing. They have, it looks like they're gonna get the other half of Hope, which will end up reducing our allocation a little bit, because the Northeast has said that they'll take on the other half of Hope and not change the gross amount of the contract at all. And that means that, because it's all weighted by population, we throw that extra population of Hope in there, and our assessment goes down a little bit. And as he said, they're moving into their new facility. It seemed to me, when we looked at the statistics, like they're not having as many non-transport calls to me. I don't know why that, they didn't seem to necessarily agree with that, but somebody else on the committee did. I looked at it, I said, it looks like there are fewer, and somebody else said, yeah, I thought so too. And I think that's it.
Pathways?
I'm
That's
not
all-
on Pathways,
that's yours
the
now.
one,
That's right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Did the balcony stuff, we shifted that to ORC, and have they had any discussions about
Hasn't come up yet.
balconies,
I haven't
overhangs,
gotten there
public
yet.
ways? Okay. I was just curious. Do you want me to go with pathways?
Go ahead.
So Parks didn't meet, and so Rec did meet. We did not have enough people for a quorum, but we scheduled the next meeting, like you said. Let them kind of pick that time and place. That's not going to be their regular scheduled. Once Ron gets there and we actually have it populated and all the people there, I'll let them flesh out their own schedules and everything like that. But still trying to get it populated, get them. So the next, and I'll be sending out an agenda for that next meeting to Stacy and to town people. Probably take the bylaws from Parks Committee that I got from Dave Jackson, try to do my own little tweaking to it, and then again hand it off to them. I'm just trying to help facilitate it. I'm not gonna do anything other than give them ideas, let them vote on it to bring it all to you all. Very happy that Rachel's there, because she at least shows up, which is awesome.
Tracy, could you send that template? You remember the template for the committee bylaws that you put together? Like,
I'll
if
dig
you've
it
got
up
would
again.
you?
So just so you
Pass
know,
that
I
on to
reached
him.
out to Dave because the bylaws that he sent to me were Parks and Rec slashed out Rec. So I was hoping that they would be similar enough, somewhat related to Rec, that it would be an easy template to work with. But I'd be more than happy to, if you could
Well,
send me that,
it was
Tracy,
the
that would
template
be
that,
great.
yeah, did they do, they did a new,
Parks did, yes.
yeah, Parks has
Parks
a.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so.
they did it Parks Way, so I'm taking the old Parks and Rec, and instead of going the Parks Way, I'm gonna try to go the Rec Way, give
Right,
them a rec
but if you look at
framework.
their current bylaws,
Completely
he
different, yeah.
used our format.
Okay.
Of mission statement, blah, blah, blah.
Perfect. If you wanna
And
send me
so
that,
I'll
that
have
would
to
be
see,
awesome.
well, I need a place
It's
to
not
make
until the
this note.
22nd.
But let me find, bylaw template.
And what I'll do is I'll try to shoot you an email as a reminder to remind me of the reminders. Pathways, so they're awesome. Again, just throwing that out there. I really enjoy spending time with that committee. They work well together. Happy to have Jamie there last time because Jamie was able to help explain the Route 1, Route 90 intersection DOT powwow that they had with Gartley and Dorsey. Apparently, a lot of those people knew each other. So it was like DOT with the DOT whisperer, with the engineer person, with Jamie, and they all had some sort of connection. So it actually went smoothly and got DOT to say, yes, we can change that pattern. We had a lot of discussion about how much the Pathways wants to be. They would like to be more involved with that process. I was trying to get him to pin down, what exactly are you saying? You just want to be kept in the loop? Do you want to be invited to all the meetings? Do you want to be given information right off the bat so you all can tweak it? I was kind of trying to rein them a little bit back from, well, let's go all out and make it conform, make it look and feel, make it cross over the intersection in all the different ways we possibly can for the future, where I was saying we got them to cross over. Like, that's a good, let's work on changing it from painted stripy stuff to nice bricks with granite edging after we've got it in place and we're doing our next maintenance cycle on it. At least you got across the road. But they were happy about how all that was progressing. Their biggest thing was
That's old.
they just want to be more involved with the process. So basically either getting myself or someone else on that committee to be more, just let Mike know if something new comes up, please let me know as soon as you can so I can let them know as soon as we can so they can figure out what's going on. That's all related to 90 and Route 1. Then we found out that they're also doing the exact same thing at 90 and 17, redoing the lighting pattern. So immediately everyone perked up and said, well, we can cross over both these trouble intersections in the same kind of fiscal year at the end of
sidewalks there.
2016. There's sidewalks there, which is a big thing. Jamie at that point kind of brought us back into reality and said, everything went smoothly with the 90 and Route 1, but at the same time, we had to push them to go in our direction. If we all of a sudden brought an entire new project, even though it wouldn't take too much, so what we thought would be a good idea was, as far as DOT's concerned, it's the town governmental people that are really pushing for 90 and 1. But when DOT has their public comment meetings for 90 and 17, which they're required to do, which they'll hide in wherever, no one will ever know about it, they're going to be monitoring that website to find out where it is. And the citizens should have a robust presence there. But it did seem like if we didn't capitalize on it, it's kind of a wasted opportunity because their timelines for looking at. And the last thing on that topic is, from my understanding, though I haven't heard it from the horse's mouth, when they go to change those light orientation, it's not like the direction, but how the lights function. The big thing was, do they basically just say it's all car traffic, no pedestrian traffic? Oh, no, it's changed. It's pedestrian traffic. What does that actually mean? Does that mean that now the lights are set up for people to cross at all four sides? So if we get our act together and build more sidewalks before they re-look at the lighting system, we're good? Or are they going to change it just for the sidewalks that we say we're going to put in? My understanding is they hit a button and say pedestrian. And that's it. They don't say pedestrian going from this spot to that spot, it. So it looks like if we approve the lighting pattern, or if they approve it and they do it, we're good to play with that intersection. It's difficult on the new Seward Smith side. There's a lot of ledge there. It'd be really difficult on the opposite side of Market Basket on the Route 90 side, where Stuart Smith just bought that corner lot. Really difficult to put a sidewalk there. It's so close to the road. There's ledge right there. So they've got things that they need to figure out, but they just wanted to stress that they wanted to be involved to make sure that it was going in the way that they thought it should be. They're also exploring the possibility of breaking out some subcommittees. The extent to which there are projects happening that the Pathway is involved with are many, and they're also kind of weird because Camden's heavily involved in the Northern Gateway or the Route 1 Gateway with Lincolnville. Rockport, not so much, but we want to show support. So one of their subcommittees would be made up of primarily Camden people, but we don't want to break them down. So there'd be a Rockland person there, or Rockport person there. So we'll be breaking, potentially having some, like a Route 90s subcommittee, a Northern Route 1 subcommittee, a Riverwalk subcommittee is, I believe, our three big projects that they wanted. So it would be 2 meetings a month, one with your subcommittee, one with the Joint Pathways Committee to report back stuff so we're not gobbling up all Pathways time. Budget season, Mike, they wanted to get pinned down. One of the frustrations, more on the Camden side, not on the Rockport side. Rockport's town government people are a lot more receptive, it seems to be, than Camden's, as far as, hey, Public Works, we said these were our priorities, and we ranked them 1, 2, 3, and instead of going to number 1, when you could have, it seemed like you put money into number 4. You're not really looking at our priorities, but there are communications. So big thing for them is communication with the Public Works people, not to be a hindrance, but to make sure that they're on track. So their thing was, does Public Works and the Public Works Director have the ability within their own budget to slush things around based on the priorities? Is there flexibility? Did they structure their budget in a way to provide flexibility? Unknowns for this year, but we hope it's all good. And the last thing is, and I drew a picture for Rick, so Rick knows what I'm talking about. A big thing for the Pathways has been power poles, utility poles in the sidewalk. And here's the thing: is it's an annoyance for us able-bodied people. It's absolutely halting for someone in a wheelchair that wants to go from Corey Hill to Rennie's to some other places. Expensive to pick up a pole or put a new pole in. Transition everything over and tear it down. Sometimes it's working out well that Fairpoint or Tidewater or whoever who owns the pole is doing it on their own, sometimes with CMP, but sometimes we have no idea, and so they just do it whenever. It would cost the town $5,000 per pole. A way to get around it is, here's the road, or here's the sidewalk, the
It's
poles.
it's not a question of where the pole goes. It's a problem of getting them to do it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But if
placing the
we're
pole
trying
is
to
not
get
a
them to
problem.
do it, they may say, sure, go ahead. You got to pay for it. We give you permission,
Right.
but you have to pay for it.
That's not the problem we're having. We're having the problem because they've removed the wires from the poles and they put in extra poles. It's getting them to pull the old pole out and then, and in some cases, moving them.
Okay.
But it's not a question of where to put them. It's a question of getting them to do it.
Yep. And what
It's our right of way. We can tell them
What
where it's supposed to go.
yeah. And I mean, as long as it's off of the sidewalk, it's totally cool wherever they put it.
Right.
One kind of way to circumvent that, if we're having a lot of difficulty with, we can't get them to move this one pole, and that's the one pole that she needs to get around to get to Rennie's in her chair. A potential way of doing it is, here's the road that you drive on, here's the
You still have
sidewalk.
the same problem, getting them to move it. Even if we pay for it, getting them to move it.
Can I just
can I just finish?
is the problem.
Yeah. So we don't have to get them to move it. That's the whole thing. That little bump out that I had drawn for you on the marker board, that's a way of getting around that pole without getting them to move that pole. And if they do move the pole, then great. All you've done is you took one crescent or half moon style thing and you put it in what is essentially
I'm sorry,
someone's
Owen, I didn't understand what you were saying. You're saying to make the sidewalk go around the pole.
sidewalk itself would have one additional piece or however many pieces you need, a bump out that does go into someone's front lawn, but would allow for our snow removal equipment and people with handicap accessibilities to go around it and actually still flow. It's a completely separate type thing.
Yeah, I
If we can
didn't
get them to
understand.
move the pole,
Yeah, I didn't understand what you were
that's
saying.
great. This is one way, a cheap way to get around it for the short term and say, you can get anywhere in our sidewalks with a wheelchair now.
Okay.
And that's the end of my rantings. Thank you.
Okay.
Planning board hasn't met. They meet they meet tomorrow.
Yes.
So,
Remember, tomorrow is the gala down
Yep.
at the Samosat.
yes. So they'll be meeting here while we're there,
Gaylording?
galaing. Well, my husband will be here
No.
while I'm galaing there.
Okay.
And I forgot to talk about the Conservation Commission. They are having a pesticide information night,
Oh.
which will be in the last week of April, and I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but I think they've chosen the date. I think it's either the 26th or the 28th. I want to say the 28th.
Where's it gonna be?
Here.
Okay.
And it is going to want to be streamed.
In this room?
Yeah.
As soon as you know, let me know, please.
28th?
28th?
Okay, so yeah, she knows, because they've reserved the room. And they're gonna get some people here. The idea is to allow residents to come and find out how they can be a little bit, easier on the pesticides, but still accomplish what they want to accomplish, and they've got some experts coming for that. Budget-wise, we did get a proposal from Bob Kennedy about, some of it is for grant money to buy equipment, but he's also suggesting we buy some additional equipment. Megan has the budget numbers, and she's put them into the budget. I think I sent a copy of that to you, Rick, Bob's budget, and they will be meeting this Thursday to finalize the rest of their budget, which is the little things like the publicity and the postage and stuff like that.
Those additional funds and equipment, is that for chasing the Goodies Beach outflow problem?
No, it's more for the Goose River monitoring
Okay.
type stuff, but it's another piece of equipment. And I actually floated the question to Bob. Bob's been in Florida, but he emails back and forth a lot. I floated the question to Bob, you know, if we buy this piece of equipment, can we then perhaps lease it out to other entities that might want to use it rather than have it sit in a closet and not get any use and maybe generate a little revenue from it? It's more the issue of let's have the piece of equipment be used, and if we get a little revenue out of it, so much the better. But at any rate, that's what they're working on. They did the easement walks in December and did the filing fees for that, and so that's where they are. I actually am going to miss their meetings for the next couple of months because of my Maine Maritime schedule. They meet on Thursdays at 4:30 now. I'm usually not back in town by then. I told them this time, you know, when I usually get back in town sometime between 5:30 and 6. I'll stop in. If they're still there, I'll be able to, you know, find out what went on. Otherwise, I'll talk to Ted afterwards and find out what went on.
Okay.
So the technology committee is in that gray area between having enough people approved by this board to have a quorum and actually have a meeting versus getting people on, but John is trying hard to gather everybody up at a mutually inclusive date.
Yeah, Jason's not brought in his committee application forms.
We shall whip him and beat him. Let me see, the Opera House Committee meets soon. 25th, yeah. They went extra long. Their last meeting was just before our last meeting, so nothing to report there, except having to do with the Opera House. You see some new stuff hanging from the ceiling and what have you. We did what I thought would be a one-day install with Terry Lee and Brian's help, and then it involved another 35 hours of my time to get it all done. But we are now streaming in high def. We have speakers here for rowdy meetings where people can't hear in the back, so these microphones will go to those speakers. We are now much better set up for a speaker to come into this place and present a slideshow for 75 people. In the corner there is a 55-inch monitor. We'll actually end up with 2 of those. So a signal coming from a person who wants to do a presentation, say budget or say conservation committee, will be routed technically, but it'll go to the streaming audience, clear as a bell, and then get distributed from there to monitors and or projectors. And then we will actually move the cameras upstairs to the Opera House for the 125th celebration to do a nice coverage of the fireside chats, etc.
These cameras?
These
Weird
cameras.
googly eye ones?
The googly eye ones.
Are they easy to move? Is that something?
They're easier than the old cameras. They're actually.
It's not saying a lot.
No, they're actually quite easy. The issue is I have to make a judgment / budget call on whether we pay an electrician to have a permanent infrastructure of wires in at 3 camera positions upstairs, hide them all in the underside of the balcony, or whether we put up 6 hooks aside and have a little bit of extra labor time to do the annual town meeting, et cetera, and then just call it a day and save what could be a fair amount of money, which could go into equipment. So that's a judgment. Rick and I will talk about that. But this room has become more of an asset and more flexible, and looks really good going out to the world, blah, blah, blah. Did I miss anything on this setup? Yes, and we actually now have a 4-camera setup rather than a 3. So that, and Terry's doing a great job. You go home and watch yourselves, but Terry's doing a great job of switching and making conversations make sense visually to people watching.
Where's the 4th
The
camera?
4th one is that big black box underneath the clock.
Oh.
That's what's called the crash camera. That's the whole board.
Oh.
But this is all going out in 1080p, which means it'll look really beautiful on your big monitors. And it streams in 4 different streaming modes, so that we do the hard, heavy lifting of saying, here's this really good 1080p signal coming in. We're going to send that out to live stream, the company, at 1080. We're going to send it out at 720. We're going to send it out at something reduced, and then we're going to send it out mobile. So if you're at home and you have your computer, it says, oh, I can give you the best looking picture. Now, all the kids come home from school and your bandwidth goes down, it jumps down to the next lower and the next lower and the next lower. And that's one of the reasons why the service we use is inexpensive, is because we do the heavy lifting here. But our pipeline, our internet pipeline, the fiber allows us to do that. So
That's all on that 1-minute lag you were talking about.
well, that's a function of the encoding only doesn't add 3 frames, 3/15ths of 3/25ths of a second, but getting out, them saying, oh, look, we got the stream from Rockport, we'll just put it and turn it around there. So that's where the 60 seconds comes in. That's just that's industry standard.
Oh, so it's not for a bleep.
No, it's not for no.
I only swore once during a meeting so far.
Yeah.
So far.
Now,
There's still time.
obviously, these
So
are
that's it.
new.
Meeting's over with. I'm sorry.
These are new microphones.
No, these are the same microphones. We bought these microphones with this in mind, in that they were removable bases.
Yeah.
So these are the same microphones. This is a different mounting. So we will, for instance, for town meeting, we will use this microphone and mate it back with its base, take it upstairs, and have that. So all of our decisions have been designed to be either very flexible or to be incremental in the upgrade.
Now, how do you take them out?
That's our issue, not yours.
No, because
I mean,
I'm saying that
it's
this
a-
one's tipping this way and that one's tipping that way.
They're isolated in rubber so that things like this don't sound
Oh, okay.
like that. So they are a little funky.
They're going, thank you, I needed that.
Is that your seal imitation?
Sorry, dear, sorry.
But these are removable.
The microphones come off, the silver parts stay.
Oh, okay.
But the other thing is,
no more climbing under
no,
the
the other
desk.
thing is, actually, the reason they're tippy is that I haven't screwed them in yet.
They're not actually connected, they're just,
No, they're connected, it's
sitting
not,
down
they're
in
not
there.
mounted,
Yeah.
so my bad.
When I saw it tippy, I was afraid. I didn't want to go pulling this thing
Good,
down.
well, you don't want to do that anyway.
Okay.
So anyway, but big advances here, and big flexibility. Our budget meetings, for instance, you won't have to, squint and put up with darkened skies
Oh,
and
no,
all
no.
that sort of stuff, yeah.
Pull the screen down anymore?
So there we are.
Okay. I had a couple of things that I wanted to pass along. I saw you point to candidate nominating papers available.
Tracy.
Well, there's also 3 for the Budget Committee, and I think 2 for the Library Committee. So they're all elected positions, plus whoever's running for the House and the Senate and all that has
Poor
to.
bastards.
But those are different issues. Legacy Rockport is working with the Capital Campaign Committee, sort of hand in hand. The Capital Campaign Committee will be using their 501c3 to raise money. They're also working on financing a project that Jeff is doing to update the 1981.
Well, there's no
video.
update, it's
It's a brand new one,
project.
yeah. But giving a new.
They're
new
acting
feel
as a
to it.
fiduciary. agent.
Yes, right.
I wish they were raising money, not me.
Yeah, that's true. The Library Committee meets next week. Oh, it's the week after that, I don't know. Yeah, week after that. They are working with the campaign committee to create the case statement. And though we didn't really get it earlier, Ben reported to the Library Committee at their last meeting that the punch list on doing things down there is rapidly dwindling. Laura Meservey is full-time, I think he told us that. The December stats, surprisingly, they expected them to be down because they were closed like half the month, but they weren't down 50%. They were down much less than that. And they've issued a lot more library cards in the first month and a half down there than they were expecting. So that's moving along. The Friends of the Rockport Public Library are hosting an open house February 26th. That's a Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. down at the library. This is an open house, but it's really intended for all the volunteers that had helped out with the move.
Is that in the middle of the 125th stuff?
No,
Yes.
it's from 2 to 4.
No, I mean, but
right,
it's the same.
no, yeah, there's
same
nothing
day.
going on
there's-
at
yeah,
that time.
Yeah, and that was coordinated with those times. The times also were specifically set at 2 o'clock start time, so Public Works can come in and
Oh, excellent.
partake. Just no snow.
As long as they're not plowing.
And they meet again, the Friends meet again this Friday at 8:30. They're meeting down in the new Marine Room. Investment Committee, we heard from tonight, but their next meeting is in April. And we've already talked about Midco Solid Waste.
Can anyone touch on West Rockport Fire Station? Are there any updates with the land
No
or
updates.
their
No
plan
updates.
for? No
Yeah,
updates.
we
No
talked
update.
about that in executive session,
Yeah.
I believe.
There's no
So-
update.
We can't
Yeah.
discuss that here.
So moved to adjourn.
They're moving forward on trying to figure out what to do with the fire station.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Maybe we'll have something next month. So, do we have any other?
I do have one more thing.
Oh.
Last month, we had I believe, 15-year veteran of the town go on to other things. And I was thinking there would be a card here for her tonight, and there wasn't. And I was told that there wasn't one for her last month when I wasn't here. Melody.
Oh,
So I was kind of disappointed. I was kind of hoping, because I had asked last month, when I heard that you guys hadn't
I
done
thought there
anything
was
for
gonna be
her
one,
last
too.
month. She was quite an asset to town, and I know that there have been a lot of changes. I'm hoping that what she's gone on to lovely things for herself, but it seems right for us to acknowledge someone who
It was
has,
supposed to have been one.
Yeah.
who had put a lot of years in at the town office and taken care of a lot of paper, hours included.
I know they did have a cake for her the day she left.
No, it was the day before.
No, it was the day before, because that's
Some of
what
us came in the day.
But I didn't know.
And I talked to her briefly, and she was excited. She said she'd miss everybody here, but she was excited about the new opportunity. It's a,
Well,
step
and
up for
yeah, I think it's a lovely thing for her, but I wanted to make sure that we took a moment to acknowledge her service to us. We are lucky to have a lot of long-term employees, and I think that's one of the things that makes our town run so smoothly, is that we have people who've been around a long time. And that's not to say that the new people won't be able to jump in and learn all kinds of things, but, you know, there's an not an industrial, what's the word I'm looking for? An institutional memory there that I think is important. She's been through, I think, 4 planners. She was with us for a long time. And I know I miss going in the office and not having her there. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that and ask that we, I know it's kind of late at this point, but that we acknowledge that, and we should sign something acknowledging.
It was
her years
supposed
of
to be there.
service.
Yep. Okay.
So check your emails for a quick visit to the town office.
Yep.
to Sign something.
That would be lovely.
Also, I talked to Charlton last week because I have a possible fundraising event for the library. Concert here with a group that I know. So stay tuned on that. That may be through Legacy Rockport or through whatever 501c3 works out or whatever. So
Okay.
that'd be probably sometime in the summer.
They're not called like the meteorological madmen, are they?